Okay, bro, look, I can explain. Alright, I can't explain, but listen, I know that this is completely inexcusable. There's just no way to justify this. A video this long, like, I'm the only person on planet Earth who has so many videos about Storm 4 and Storm connections, like Storm-related commentary videos, that exceed the 1 hour mark. Like, no one uploads videos about Storm that are like more than an hour long. They're all like 10 to 20, 30 minutes tops. I'm just insane, bro. There is simply no way to explain this. But I can't help myself. I just can't. By the way, the meat of this video is the broken stuff in the game, like broken jutsus and all. I've left timestamps all over the video in an attempt to give it some semblance of order and organization, otherwise it would be nothing but a schizo rant. So if you want to see that, like the most important part, like the broken jutsus and all that, you can skip to that part. But for now, I gotta get some miscellaneous stuff out of the way, like, you know, the English dub and some other things, and then I'll talk about, well, the most important gameplay issues. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So I finally come out of the woodworks to talk about Storm Connections again. This video was long overdue, and, you know, now that the dust is settled, I feel like it's only appropriate that I weigh in on this whole situation with my 2 cents. This game has kind of been beckoning me to make a video on it for a very long time, and, you know, I usually make my videos kind of like, you know, off the cuff, and I didn't want that to be the case for this video. This will probably be my last Storm Connections commentary video. I use last very loosely because I know myself, and I know that I can't really resist the urge to complain about stuff, and this series, or rather, this company, never fails to give me grounds to do what I do best. It's like an inexhaustible avenue with an endless supply of things to just bitch about. So, when this game dropped, and I actually got to play it myself, to say that I was immediately underwhelmed would be an understatement, and a major one at that. So, a lot of things have compelled me to make this video, and, you know, I've already made 2 videos regarding connections. One was about the new mechanical changes, and the other one was about, like, the characters, or lack thereof. So, after the game's unceremonious marketing and even less ceremonious launch, CC2, the kings of cutting corners and subverting expectations, are back, and they're back with a vengeance this time. So, it's been around, what, 3 months since the game dropped, and, you know, you might be wondering, what brought this on? Why now? To what does the game owe the honor of me gracing it with my time? So, every once in a while, I'll upload a commentary video just lambasting Storm, because there's simply always so much material. You know, for my first 2 videos, I waited for news to pile up, and then I uploaded those 2 videos, you know, like, consecutively, in succession. And it's kind of the same with this. I didn't want to have 50 smaller videos discussing how preposterous having no custom online is, and, you know, all that other stuff. And I didn't want to make anything prematurely before I actually got to play the game and test it out myself, because, you know, the proof is in the pudding and all. Well, it seems that a lot of people are having a very hard time reconciling with the very unpalatable fact that this game is indisputably ass, and the disappointment is almost palpable. So, you know, a lot of people have gone ballistic over the state of this game, and to be quite honest, the community has every right not to condone this insufferable behavior from CC2 that we've been having to deal with for over a decade now. So you'll see videos like this, like Naruto Storm Connections is a bad deal. $60 for this? From hype to disappointment. Naruto Storm Connections is a disappointment. A huge disappointment. Looks horrendous. Everyone hates Naruto Storm Connections. Sucks! Trash! Disgusting! Waste of money! The worst Naruto Storm game. Trash! Scam! Waste of money! The worst Storm game! Scam! Terrible! The worst Storm game! It's like you keep seeing videos like this. They're like all over the place. So, ever since this game dropped, my feed has been inundated with these types of videos. Hell, even before the game came out, I have videos like this pop up, you know, of people just being incredibly bent out of shape, having conniptions over the game, predicting its imminent failure and all that.
And for good reason, too. Initially, I thought that maybe they were blowing things out of proportion. You know, when I saw all these complaints about armors and all that, I thought people were making mountains out of molehills, you know. They can't be that bad, right? But now that I've played the game myself, I can attest to a lot of these criticisms. So people weren't really overly exhilarated to play this game. And can you really hold it against them? Like, the Storm community can only take so many L's. This series literally cannot withstand any more of these ill-advised decisions. Now, some people made these videos a week after the game's release, some people made it a month after its release, and hell, some people made these videos, you know, condemning the game way before its release, and like I said, they were well within their right to. But, you know, I was like, nah, you know, don't knock it till you try it, bro. Don't jump the gun yet. Let him cook, bro. Let him cook. But, oh boy. But anyway, I've seen most of these videos, and people make some very compelling arguments. Now, of course, there are a lot of reasons that compelled me to make this video. So honestly, I was kind of hesitant to talk about it at first, because, you know, I was still high on copium, but now that it's been over, what, 2 months, 3 months, I feel like it's only fair that I do my due diligence and go postal as well. Oh, and before I delve into all this, I'm gonna go off on a tangent real quick. I'm still working on analyzing those remaining 5 Vergil combos, so, you know, don't get your panties in a bunch, you know, I know everyone's eagerly anticipating those videos. But I'm gonna have to keep those on the back burner for the time being, because this really, really takes precedence. So the very first trailer for this game already engendered a lot of controversy. Right off the bat, the egregious marketing surrounding this game started arousing some suspicion that things were gonna go south. You know, it raised a few eyebrows. Raised all the eyebrows. Like, everybody already knew that this game flopping was an inevitability. And that was after the very first trailer. Like, keep that in mind. So people were just waiting for the impending bane of this game that hadn't even dropped yet. I mean, to be fair, in retrospect, it was kind of a no-brainer. Like, logic dictates the game's gonna be ass, because if you look back, they barely even advertised this thing. So to say that people were less than elated would be a major understatement. But conversely, some people, myself included, believe it or not, thought that this would be their chance to redeem themselves and put the fraud allegations to bed. But instead, they put the entire franchise to bed. So they made no effort to dispel any of these rumors and doubts. No, they doubled down. You know, in hindsight, I was setting myself up for disappointment, and I knew it. I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I was the guy telling everyone to let them cook, and they cooked the entire franchise, but, you know, normally I would never put my money on CC2 actually making the right call, but like I said, I was high on hopium and copium when I said all that. It was a lapse in my judgment, and I was in for a very rude awakening. I wanted so desperately to believe that they were not irredeemable, that they could exonerate themselves. And then lo and behold, the game comes out and it's ass. Now, for the record, I'm no stranger to CC2's antics, and I was bearing all this in mind. This was not my first rodeo with them, because, you know, they've dashed my hopes time and time again, as evidenced by all my videos that I've uploaded to this channel. But, you know, I must be a glutton for punishment, because over the years, they've done some terrible, downright perplexing things, made some, like, insane decisions that ultimately had a very adverse effect on the game itself. And they set a very horrible precedent. And yet, with all these precedents under my belt, all these horrible experiences with CC2 over the course of nearly a decade, I still chose to vouch for them all the same. Like, you're telling me this game made by a company infamous for atrocious decisions with catastrophic marketing actually turned out to be a bad game? Well, color me surprised, go figure. But yeah, all I can infer from this is that I'm profoundly stupid, to be honest. I was really hoping it would have come to this, but I guess it can't be helped. Like I said, in hindsight, this was a completely predictable outcome, and it was bound to elicit a very vitriolic response from yours truly, but yeah, boy, do I have a litany of grievances with this game. Somehow, everything aligns to a T with what I said in my Naruto Storm 5 video. You know, the first video I made before the game was even announced. It's really unfortunate that I seem to be clairvoyant, apparently, because I foreshadowed almost everything in that video. So, you can consider this video like some kind of spiritual sequel to that video. And again, before I start ranting, just a short disclaimer, my inclination towards repetition is nothing to scoff at. Like, I have this inveterate tendency to just say the same thing over and over again. And yes, needless to say, I will be retreading a lot of ground from my last two Storm Connections videos. And yes, even my Storm 5 discussion video that I made before the game was announced. This will be a doozy, so buckle up. We're going to be covering the lurid details of this crime of a game. So, Storm 4 was the most popular anime game, I think. It sold over 12 million copies, and it's probably the highest grossing, well, I can't say that, it's the best-selling anime game, I think. So, Connections had some big shoes to fill. So first on the chopping block is the characters, because, you know, I place a huge premium on characters. I've always been a huge proponent of, well, you know, more characters in Storm, since, you know, this is a fighting game after all. I think you should have a lot of characters to play with. So yeah, I know I dedicated an entire video to this topic, but I'm gonna have to bring it up again. For the sake of brevity, I'll run you through the whole thing in the most concise way that I can. So long story short, we only got 10 new playable characters after 8 years. Much to everyone's chagrin. So, you know, you got me fucked up if you think I'm gonna be grateful for getting 10 characters. Every Storm game ever has had more playable characters than Storm Connections. Now, let me put this into perspective. Let me put into perspective just how miserable this amount is. Exhibit A, Storm 1, 30 characters. Exhibit B, Storm 2, 42 playable characters. Storm 3, Generations, and Revolution all had 16 characters respectively, you know, 16 characters each. Storm 4 had 13 characters of base, but it had 12 as DLC, totaling 25 playable characters. But in this game, we have 10 characters in base, and we're getting 5 more as DLC. That's like a total of 15 playable characters, with the DLC, mind you. Now, maybe there will be a Season Pass 2, but, you know, I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, if we ever get to it. But, yeah, 8 years of absence and nothing, absolutely nothing to show for it. I think the fact that literally every Storm game ever has had more characters, it just really highlights how little effort they exerted for this game. So, a data miner leaked the 5 DLC characters that we're getting, and let's just say Senju was right about 3 of them, and I was right about the remainder. Or, well, the other 2 characters, basically. Spoiler alert, it doesn't seem like we'll be getting Adult Konohamaru, Code, or Toneri. Even though Konohamaru exists in a Team Ultimate Jutsu, and they have 60% of his moveset done in Road to Boruto. Toneri... Toneri is such a meme, bro. I've been asking for this man since 2015. Do you know how... Bro, no, it's surreal to me that the main villain of the last is not playable when he's begging for a moveset. And in this game, you give us Toneri, you give us his model, but you don't make him playable. This is cruel and unusual punishment, CC2. What are you doing? This guy cut the moon in half. I can't, man. I'm so done, man. Maybe in another life, alright? Maybe. But anyway, you know, also I really like how we got Kage costumes for Gara and Darui, but we still have no Chojuro or Kurotsuchi. People who are also Kage and who fought Momoshiki and have so much material for a moveset. Like, it's a blasphemy they're not in the game. Like, they should have been playable back in Storm 3. They were support-only characters, you know? And we had, like, they should have been playable back then, and now we should be getting their costumes for, like, you know, their Boruto-era versions, their Kage costumes, but, you know, it doesn't really matter. They had so many games and so many opportunities to make these 2 playable, but no can do, I guess. And the fact that they actually advertise these 10 characters like a huge amount is just beyond the pale, man. Like, oh my god, look, 10 new playable characters! Yay! Like, Jesus, what? Oh, I can't, bro. Alright, whatever. Whatever. I gotta compose myself. So Matsuyama said how Matsuyama is the CEO of CC2, by the way. So he said how characters take a long time to make, and you gotta think real hard about which characters you want to add, and how picking the right characters entails an inordinate amount of planning. And that's a load of baloney. I really don't want to listen to this corporate mumbo jumbo, this inane prattle about how they gotta license the characters, get the voice actors, pick the right characters. No, I don't give a fuck. It's patently false, because look at Mortal Kombat. Look at Tekken, Street Fighter, look at all these games. At launch, these games have over 50 characters, and that's the bare minimum. So clinging to this horrendous argument and trying to sell this story how it's hard to choose the right characters to make playable when there are over 20 characters that you owe us from previous Storm games that have had a profound impact on the story of Naruto and are by no means irrelevant, yeah, it just doesn't hold water. It's just such a riot when you attempt to sell this story that, oh, you know, it's very hard, that's why we didn't give you any of these characters. And there's also the argument that, you know, the more characters we get, the harder it is to balance the game, but I think that's just such a cheap cop-out, like complete BS, you know, like, because the characters in this game are not difficult to make. Like, why can't we have both quantity and quality, you know? Because, you know, you can have a lot of characters and have balance. These two aren't mutually exclusive, but no, 10 characters, you know? How fucking magnanimous, CC2. You know, these guys have given me PTSD, in the sense that I have been conditioned to not have any expectations from anyone regarding anything. For instance, and I know this is a meme at this point, but, you know, when the Vergil DLC was announced for DMC 5, I was dumbfounded. I legitimately thought Capcom would just not give us Vergil, even though he had always been playable in some special edition, you know? But, you know, why did I think he wouldn't be playable? Because Momoshiki and Kinshiki, the main villains of the Road to Boruto expansion, were not playable despite being the main villains and despite having 80% of their moveset finished. We only got them 3 years later, like 3 years after Road to Boruto dropped. Same way Mers and Nanashi weren't playable in this game. Not that I care too much about them, because, you know, they're not canon characters, but... and I feel like they'd be wasted slots, but, you know, it's still stupid, you know? I remember when the last Naruto and Sasuke actually turned out to be new playable characters, I was pleasantly surprised, to say the least, because I was fully expecting them to be just, you know, reskins of, you know, previous versions of Naruto and Sasuke. And seeing the support that other games like Mortal Kombat and Tekken get, it actually makes me a little bummed, you know, because certain video game developers are just so in tune with everything. They stay in touch with their fan base, they cater to everybody's needs, and I really wish CC2 would take a page out of their book. So, not a lot of characters, but the one thing this game has in spades, though, is issues and glitches, and they range from relatively minor issues like history mode being meh, QTEs being removed, to actual game-breaking issues. Now, apparently history mode sucks ass. They removed some really good, you know, cutscenes, boss fights, quick time events, but, you know, I really don't want to focus on that. Now, there have been some allegations regarding the English dub of this game. I used to play Storm 4 English dubbed. I don't even know why, because I prefer the original Japanese dub, but I can tell you with a high degree of certainty this new dub sucks ass. And let me give you a demonstration. Let me provide a few highlights. Get a load of this.
It looks like I'll have to work a bit harder.
I guess I'll have to be tougher on you.
It's time to unleash the power of God. It's time to unleash the power of God. Did that wake you up? Did that wake you up?
Obito.
It's you.
Obito.
It's you, as usual.
This Susanoo is destruction itself. Shatter and be destroyed. This Susanoo is destruction itself. Shatter, be destroyed! I'll finish this. Urban conceal!
I'll finish this. Heaven conceal!
So long, Butcher. So long.
Susanoo!
So, suffice it to say, it's pretty bad, compared to the original dub at least. Kawaki's voice actor ran some tests in these clips, and apparently it was AI. But apparently this isn't enough to prove anything, and these AI claims seem to be kind of unsubstantiated. And I don't really want to make any claims because Bandai vehemently denies all this, and honestly they kind of have to because it's literally illegal to use AI. But whatever, who cares? I play Japanese anyway, so I'm not as torn up about this. Now, people have been complaining about no custom online, no endless, only 2 game modes, the Xbox version not even having online initially, not being able to leave the lobby or pick your opponent, not being able to change the stage, history mode being garbage, story mode being lackluster, the English dub being AI, QTEs being removed, boss fights being dumbed down, you know, miscellaneous stuff like that. You know, how they need to impose penalties on rage quitters, which, I mean, I agree, but whatever. But I feel like all of this is, like, it's completely impertinent to the topic at hand. I want to address the elephant in the room, and it's a big-ass elephant, bro. The gameplay. No one seems to be complaining about the gameplay, save for a few advanced players. No one's addressing this issue aside from, you know, veteran players. Like I said, it's like everyone else is just blissfully unaware of the copious amounts of gameplay issues, and they choose to focus instead on very surface level stuff. And, you know, I don't know, you don't even have to be overly perceptive to notice that something is very off when you play this game. Like, there doesn't seem to be any semblance of competitiveness or balance or anything at all. And since we got gameplay issues out the wazoo, that's going to be the meat and potatoes of this video. And, you know, this whole journey has been a roller coaster, to be honest, because when I first saw these gameplay changes, I was originally ambivalent. Like, yeah, they didn't have to change that, but, you know, fine. And then some of these changes started to grow on me, and I got the impression that the pros outweighed the cons. But oh, how delusional I must have been. So like I said, there's a copious amount of gameplay issues, chief among them being armors and broken jutsus, I'd say. Just bear with me here. So, even before the game dropped, me and my friends had some qualms about the gameplay. Like, we could see some issues, but it's not until you've actually played the game yourself online that these issues are actually brought to the forefront. Because, you know, the devil's in the details. It's not until you've played the game yourself. You know, it's not enough to just watch gameplay videos. You gotta savor the fun yourself. And like I said, this is exactly why I didn't want to make this video before I was sure I had enough experience with the game to make a verdict, you know? Now, these were some innocuous changes, like, you know, some kind of insignificant buffs to low-tier characters. It wouldn't be a problem. But we have an abundance of issues that completely break the flow of the game and just, you know, they just render the game a lot more uninviting. So the most prevalent issues, like I said, the main 2 are armors and this surplus of broken jutsus. Now, the former seems like it could be easily fixed with a patch, you know, just remove armors from every jutsu. But the latter is a bit more intricate to tackle, because it's not just the armor that makes these jutsus OP. Hiruzen has the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu, and it's even more ridiculous than Hashirama's Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsus. And you can use both at the same time. This, coupled with the fact that most of these insane jutsus have armors, tells you all you need to know. Now, I don't know what they were thinking, but, like, there's so many excessively broken jutsus that I can't even show all of them because it would result in an hour-long segment of the video. In fact, trying to find a jutsu that isn't broken is like trying to find a needle in a haystack, but anyway, I'll talk more in depth about these jutsus and provide specific examples in a hot minute. Right now, I want to go back to armors real quick. So what you just had the uttermost displeasure and misfortune of witnessing was the most vomit-inducing abomination to ever bestow itself upon this series. Now, the inclusion of armored jutsus in this game was a cardinal error, because, there have been a lot of things that have bedeviled previous Storm games. Glitches and game-breaking issues are basically a staple of the series, a hallmark feature, if you will. In Storm 3, it was Instant Awakenings. In Revolution, it was counters and drive types, also awakening types. In Storm 4, you had dash cuts. And in this game, armors are the main nuisance. Kind of. There's still things that are worse than that, but we'll get to that. So, what are armors? Well, in layman's terms, I guess they're essentially invincibility frames. Actually, wait, that makes it sound even more complicated. Alright, so let me clue you in. You know how in previous Storm games, when you're comboing your opponent and they sub and try to do a jutsu immediately, if you immediately dash them, you will interrupt their jutsu and start comboing them again. So the game rewards your reaction speed and punishes the opponent's hastiness. In this game, your opponent can sub your combo and do a jutsu, and if you dash them, or start mashing, you get hit by the jutsu. Like, in Storm 4, you had obstacles that would encumber the game, but they weren't insurmountable obstacles. With these jutsu armors, you're impervious to dashes, mashes, anything. Now, that isn't to say they're completely insurmountable. They are vulnerable to switch. So you're not immune to switching. You can technically circumvent armors if you switch at the right time, but it's highly situational because sometimes you simply don't have your support available and you don't have subs, so you're fucked. You're fucked! Now, you know how in Storm 4, EMS Sasuke and also Rinnegan Sasuke, they had that same ultimate jutsu, the Susanoo Flame Control? Yeah, well, it's probably the best ultimate jutsu in the game in terms of functionality because it's so easy to land, and it's got invincibility frames. So, let's say, I'm comboing you, and you sub, and you immediately do an ultimate, and I dash you, well, you will just hit this invincibility frame, you will hit this invisible wall, and my ultimate will hit you regardless, Well, that was the problem with EMS and Rinnegan Sasuke. In this game, every character has this issue, and it's not ultimates, it's jutsus. Every jutsu, I think, every single jutsu has this property. I just don't understand. They added these jutsu armors for seemingly no apparent reason. I surmise they did it so that jutsus would be used more, because that would presumably encourage people to use these new second jutsus. It makes no sense. Now, Poison Akami actually offered some insight as to why they may have done this. He thinks they know what jutsus are underutilized, and they buff those jutsus so that people would use them more frequently. And you know what? I think I'm willing to concur with that, honestly, because it definitely strikes me as their type of reasoning. Or rather, it's so devoid of reason that it's definitely something CC2 would do. Now, regarding armors, another thing Poison Akami mentioned, he proposed another alternative that he deems viable, and that is to make armored jutsus uncancelable. So if you start a jutsu and it has armor, you can't cancel it. But I actually disagree with this, because if you're out of subs or can't switch, at that point it doesn't matter whether or not the jutsu is cancelable, because you got hit because it has armor. So, oh well, GG. Plus, I feel like it'd be a lot easier if the armors were simply gone entirely. And honestly, I know this might sound like a stretch, but these armors are kind of reminiscent of dash cuts. Like, you dash and you get punished for it. Like, it's just so insanely annoying. You know, when I first saw that they nerfed awakening times and dash cuts, my interest was piqued. I got the impression they were actually aware of the most prominent issues and that they were actively working on fixing them. I was like, damn, that's not half bad. They might be onto something. I actually believed that with dash cuts now out of the equation, we could take a breather. That was my conjecture based on all the changes that I had seen at the time. And, you know, I thought the game was going to be decent. And what do you know? It was all cap. Every single thing, bro. When I first saw that the awakening times were shortened from 30 seconds to 16, I was over the moon, because awakenings were a huge problem in Storm 4. But guess what? Awakenings aren't even nerfed in this game. The damage is almost doubled, you can awaken 50 times per round, and you can get absolutely annihilated by them. Counters are now infinite, they inhibit you from stopping your opponent from awakening, and I can't overstate how incredibly broken this is. You know, in Storm 4, counters used to repel the enemy. But like I said in one of my previous videos, that's no longer possible, or rather, it would no longer work. And I'm not asking them to bring back Storm 4's counter, because like I said, it wouldn't work. However, I think they need to limit counters to 3 per round, or make it so that they take chakra just like in Storm 4. I said this in my last video, but sometimes I simply get discombobulated just watching matches, let alone playing them. It's just such a clusterfuck. Like, I sometimes actually struggle to keep up with what's going on. Alright, so this is a 30-second, 28-second long gameplay video of Storm Connections. Let's see how many jutsus will be used in the span of less than 28 seconds, alright? 1. Alright, guard's already broken. 2. 3. 4. 5. But failed. 6. There we go, Ashura. 7, 8, 9, alright, let's go, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
There's so many, like, catch-22 situations in this game where you want to do something to counter something, but you can't do that something because the thing you're trying to counter is preventing you from doing that something that would counter the thing. Let me explain. For example, let's say there's a jutsu that you want to avoid by, you know, let's say going airborne. And you want to go airborne to avoid the jutsu, but the jutsu hits you in the air as well, so it prevents you from going airborne, so you can't counter the jutsu because you can't go airborne. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a typical catch-22 situation where you try to do something to prevent something, to avoid something in this case, and you can't do it because the thing you're trying to escape from is preventing you from, you know, committing the escape. Do you know what I mean? This is so confusing.
Now, you know, at first glance, I thought this game would be overly aggressive, how you would dash a lot. But the counter, being infinite, it kind of serves as a deterrent in that it deters you from making a move. I've even seen a lot of advanced players basically just hesitate to engage their opponent at times because they know they're going to get countered and the opponent will suffer 0 repercussions for countering. It's no risk, all reward. And I feel like a lot of people just, you know, like, struggle to embrace the game in its current state, and rightfully so. This is not something that should be welcomed. And I also think awakenings need to be limited to once per round, or even once per match, because that's simply how OP they are. I've seen matches where some, you know, like Geza and some advanced players get absolutely wrecked by awakenings. Like, somebody awakens 50 times per match and you cannot stop them in this game, especially when it's A Gate's guy. You know, in Storm 4, Danzo and Six Paths Madara used to be a problem, now it's 8 Gates Guy. This guy is literally a glitch. Like, he is that broken. Now, I've seen some comments on E's posts on YouTube, and the comment section kind of rekindles hope, but unfortunately, it's ultimately inconsequential what people think.
Now, when you look at E's comment sections, you know, you'll see that a lot of people prefer Storm 4 over Storm Connections. And it's, you know, they mentioned the skill gap. They, you know, you can see here, like, they're talking about why armors are a thing, why nothing has been fixed, you know, all of this stuff. Like, I'll just leave it here. And, you know, people have basically accepted the fact that this Storm is just a disappointment. And, you know, here's this guy says, like, Storm 4 is arguably better, less jutsu and counter spam, better info about your opponent, custom lobbies. And yeah, man, it's just completely true. Every noob spamming invincibility frames. But then you got people like this. We all know what's wrong with Connections, but saying it's a bad game because of spammers just tells me you're a crybaby who doesn't want to lose. There are so many ways to deal with spammers. Alright, fucking spammers. You guys just don't want to find a way to beat them. Instead, you go back to Storm 4 where you feel safe until some good player finds the new meta and then play Connections again. I'm not in Team Connections or something like that. It's a mod. It is what it is, but I think most of the people who go back to Storm 4 because they come from Storm 4 especially, thinking what they know so far about whatever, okay? Alright? So the way I got, you know, if I understood this correctly, this guy is saying how people are saying that Connections is a bad game because of the spammers, and it most definitely is. It is a horrible game. This guy's just completely wrong. If he's even putting Connections, like lumping it with Storm 4, like putting them in the same ballpark is just insulting. You gotta be completely delusional to look at Storm 4 and go, oh yeah, man, this game was also as broken as Connections. No, Storm 4 did have some issues, but they could have been fixed with a few patches here and there. This game is just all around atrocious. It's in a deplorable state. And to say that these veterans are complaining because they lost their, you know, supremacy or whatever, and that they feel safe running in Storm, just what are these people talking about? You'll see that everyone who like defends Connections, like they all make the same arguments, like, oh, you're just scared, you're just scared. And you'll see this one other guy here who made, like, I sort of got his comment was, it initially struck me as pretty rational. So he said, let's be frank, the pro gamers have lost the supremacy they had in previous Storm games, because now even a rookie with a good spamming jutsu strategy can win. That is absolutely true. It's just, and it's not good game design. It's horrible game design. No need anymore to absolutely know how to do the hollow step, the combo reset, all the mechanic around the switch. In short, all that I guess he's trying to say all the pro mechanics that pros use to win. Agreed. Again, it's a lot less complex. I understand that it's frustrating, but in a certain way it reduces drastically the gap we had between pro and regular players in the previous Strom. Bro, like, why did you have to put that last... Why did you have to include that last paragraph? Like, you just completely shit on everything here. Like, there is... Like, sure, the pros have lost their supremacy, and that's a horrible thing, and it's also a horrible thing that this game is so brain dead. But to say that this is somehow... Like, you're justifying this because, oh, well, at least now everybody's got, like, they're playing on equal terms, they got equal footing. This is not a good thing. For crying out loud, I keep saying this, it's not good game design to have people play, like, you have a noob with, like, 10 hours in the game, and he can beat somebody with, like, 7,000 hours in the game. That is bad game design. Maybe this guy isn't trying to justify it, but from the way the comment is structured, it definitely seems like, okay, maybe this is, all true, but at the very least, we got this, and it's like he's trying to make it out to be a good thing, which it really isn't. It's a horrible thing.
Now, of course, you got people like this, and needless to say, I don't share this person's sentiment. I think it's completely idiotic Just, oh, you used to run back in Storm 4, but now you can't run anymore. That's why you hate this game, because you can no longer run, and also there's no more switch clusterfuck, so you can spam. Yeah, bro, this game is so much more balanced than Storm 4. No more switch, no more running, except it's all about running, and you have, like, a billion jutsus you can spam just by pressing a button. Yeah, man. I'm pretty sure all these pros are just scared of connections because they'll get wrecked because they're not good anymore. The fact of the matter is, this game is tailored towards noobs. That's the target audience they're pandering to. And, the actual veterans and the people who play this game religiously, they have no say in the matter. So, like I said, if you want to try and become an advanced player in this lackluster game that gives you zero incentive to get better, then knock yourself out, I guess. Well, whatever, Now, I want to talk a little more in depth about some of the stuff that this game has that is incredibly broken and OP. So, it's like there is no skill ceiling in this game. It's like everyone's equal, kinda. Like, I mentioned in one of my previous videos how some people were hoping to be on a par with all the veterans. Like, newcomers with 10 hours in the game want to be able to fight and win against someone with 5,000 hours in Storm 4. Not realizing that you winning against someone with this much experience is not normal. It's bad game design, plain and simple. But that's exactly what seems to be the case in this game. I mean, not entirely, because if you have experience with Storm, if you were a professional Storm 4 player, you will have an edge over most people in this game. But it's just that the edge is kind of blunt, because there's so many broken jutsus and cheap tactics that can still catch you off guard, and it's so easy to spam them. And it's a lot more difficult to counter these things in this game. In this game, you have to be a lot more reliant on jutsus and counters. Like, excessive use of jutsus is the way to go. And I guess this is their idea of leveling the playing field. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a casual or a veteran, just press one button and you'll beat anyone. Like, even pros. So if you want to gain the upper hand quickly, you have a wide array of incredibly succulent, broken, spammable jutsus at your disposal. And, if you enjoy vehemently spamming jutsus and running, you're going to have a field day in this game, because the odds are definitely in your favor. So, even people who have no prior experience with this series can fare relatively well against a lot of average players, which is in stark contrast to Storm 4, where that simply was not the case. Skill did mean something at least, even though even in Storm 4, you had tons of spammable things. But, at least in Storm 4, you would get eviscerated if you were just carelessly spamming jutsus. By anyone half decent, that is. Dealing with this was cakewalk, but now, it's something you actually gotta look out for, and for good reason, otherwise you'll get obliterated. So basically, anyone can be a prodigy now. You can easily meet your Waterloo at the hands of some completely inexperienced player, irrespective of your skill level. Just spam jutsus to your heart's content, spam counters on a regular basis, and you're already a force to be reckoned with. It's a walk in the park, really. So the only way to actually play this game and win, like the only course of action you have in order to retaliate against this jutsu spam, is to reciprocate in the same manner. Give them a taste of their own medicine. If you can't beat them, join them. Just spam jutsus yourself. Now, like I said, for the umpteenth time, the problem with these broken jutsus is that in addition to being broken, like for example Hashirama Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu, it's that most of these jutsus have armor. So you're going to have a very hard time stopping these jutsus because they have armor, and likewise you're going to have an even more difficult time dodging them because they're broken,
Alright, so it took more than 40 minutes, but we're finally here. So this is the centerpiece of this video, like the meat and potatoes of this whole thing. The broken stuff in this game. Mostly broken jutsus and broken characters, but I will mention some broken tech, like resets, if you can even consider that tech, because it's so easy, it's like so laughably simple to do, and some other stuff like items, counters, yada yada yada. So let's get into it. Alright, so now let's talk about Ashura's jutsu, namely his second jutsu, this pregnant Kamehameha Rasengan thing. So this jutsu hits you 10 times, so if you block, there's a high chance it's gonna break your guard, because in this game, your guard is basically nothing. It's so fragile, it's insane. But So chances are it's going to break your guard. But worry not, because if you block and, it doesn't break your guard, you're going to be too busy blocking, and I can simply launch another jutsu. I can launch this Kamehameha thing twice, and the second time it will definitely break your guard. And you won't be able to escape because you're going to have your hands full blocking this jutsu. Like I said, it hits 10 times. The second thing is, even if you block this jutsu and then sub immediately after the fact, it's still going to hit you because this jutsu has active frames. Even if you dodge it, even if you sub and, you guard and you block the jutsu for a millisecond and then you sub, well, it's too late. The jutsu is going to be active and it's still going to kill you. So the thing is, the key is to basically sub immediately after seeing this jutsu. Don't even try to guard, because it will explode and it will, basically force you to block or break your guard. If you're out of subs, well, I'm sorry, there's nothing you can do about it. I will now show you a few highlights, showcasing this jutsu and just how broken it is. So, buckle up. So here you can see how I'm basically air comboing my friend with Naruto, and he calls Ashura, and Ashura's jutsu hits me. I sub, and then I dash immediately, and the jutsu hits me again, because like I said, it's active for a very long time. It's got active frames, so never, if you sub, don't dash again, right? That's basically the key here. And here you can see how I basically called, I did Ashura's jutsu at point blank range, and my friend subbed, but then he continued hitting me, and as a result, even though he subbed, the fact that he tried to air dash me, it caused him to get basically blown away by the jutsu. So this thing is that OP. Here you can see how my friend did this jutsu on me. I subbed, and once again I dashed, and it's the same exact result. So it's just insane. So here you can see how my friend did this jutsu at point blank range, and I had to basically guard, but eventually I realized that I had to sub. But it didn't matter because I was so close to the stage that the jutsu basically hit me anyway, despite me subbing. It's just that incredibly annoying. Here you can see basically how, my friend did this jutsu, and I subbed, and I tried to move away, but then I dashed, but since my friend basically, he did this deliberately, he basically took cover behind this jutsu. When I dashed directly onto the jutsu, and basically, yeah. Now, look, you can ascribe a lot of these, to me being incompetent, or you can chalk it up to me being reckless, but believe me, in the heat of the moment, you just don't want to stand there and do nothing as this jutsu is breaking your guard, and you want to dash, you want to play the game. In Storm 4 you have instances where you gotta be patient, but in this game, it's just so incredibly annoying. This thing is active for so long that it drives you crazy, basically. Here you can see how my friend did this jutsu, and I was in midair, and I had to basically block. And then he air dashed me, and I subbed, and then I basically subbed right into the jutsu, because look at how much it covers. Look at how much this thing covers. You're forced to sub, but you're gonna sub into the jutsu. I just can't. Oh my god, man. I can't. I just can't. Here you can see how basically, got hit by the jutsu again. There's just nothing you can do here. Look, I'm basically blocking, and it's wasting my guard, and now I gotta sub. It's do you even see this? Look, I sub, and now I'm here. Even though I subbed the jutsu, I am now basically forced to guard because the jutsu is still active. It still has to explode, and when it does, it will hit you. Here you can see the same thing. Basically, he does the jutsu, and I'm blocking in the air because I'm forced to, and eventually, this results in me getting comboed. Because even though I subbed, I was forced to block because this thing explodes and you have to block. Otherwise, it will ruin your health or burn your subs. Here you can see the same thing. I basically fired this jutsu at point blank range. My friend basically guarded and then he subbed, but then he made the fatal mistake of air dashing, which resulted in him getting basically hit by the jutsu and being forced to sub again. Oh my god, man. Do you see what I mean? Do you see what kind of jutsu we're dealing with here? Now, this jutsu, obviously, since it's active, it has back hits. So, as you can see here, my friend swapped places with me, and that's basically like a sub, in a way. He dodged the jutsu, and now he's here. So, I was forced to basically hit the ground, and the jutsu exploded, and my friend dashed me, and he got hit by the jutsu. Absolutely insane. That's so cool, man. That's so cool. And here you can see kind of like it's kind of the same thing. I do this jutsu and my friend he was too close to it, so he got hit. Man, I don't know, man. I don't know. Here, I don't even know what's happening here. I'm gonna be honest with you. I did this jutsu, right? And as you can see, like, you see Entra's Amaterasu and you see this jutsu. I don't even know what's happening on the screen at this point. I literally don't know. All I know is I can see my friend's HP being drained and I can see him basically, getting hit by the jutsu. That's all. But, it's not just Ashura's second jutsu that's problematic. Ashura's first jutsu is also nothing to scoff at. So he has this hurricane jutsu, and obviously, just like his second jutsu, this thing has so many layers of armor. So Ashura does this jutsu on the ground, and as you can see, my friend is comboing me in the air, but the jutsu forces him to sub, and it hits him while he's in the air, enabling me to start comboing him. Because this jutsu covers the ground and the air. It's got so much vertical range, if that makes any sense, and it's also got armor. So even though my friend subbed, he still got hit by the jutsu this high up in the air, and he had to burn two of his subs, and he got hit, and this allowed me to start comboing him, which is like a decisive kind of thing, Alright, so here you can see how, my friend has Sai, and I have Indra, and my friend is comboing me, and I call Ashura, and even though my friend's hitting me, Ashura is unfazed. He's completely undeterred, he's just standing there. So he does the jutsu, and my friend is forced to sub, and the jutsu hits him anyway, so he has to sub again. So he wastes 2 subs just because of this one support. That is crazy to me. And here you can see how my friend is basically comboing me with Rinnegan Sasuke, and somehow, someway, he doesn't hit Ashura. Ashura is just immune to everything, bro. He's just got invincibility frames. So my friend hits him, but no, it doesn't really matter. So Ashura does the jutsu, forcing my friend to sub. And then he forces him to sub once again, wasting 2 of his subs. And here you can see the same thing. He's comboing me with Sasuke, and he keeps hitting me. He keeps dashing me. He keeps doing everything to try and somehow stop Ashura from doing this jutsu, trying to interrupt him. But nope, Ashura does the jutsu, and it hits my friend, so he has to sub, and then he has to sub again. And as a result, he was left with no subs, and I ended up basically, taking the match. That is just so goddamn insane. This guy, and this is just Ashura, alright? Like, he is one of the more broken characters. It's not just his jutsus, by the way. Like, he as a character is just really, really, like, extremely viable. His hitbox is nice. He's fast. He's got good items. And he's just an S-tier character all around, So, yeah, man, I just don't know, man. This guy... Oh, and I will discuss resets. Like, Ashura has some really good reset potential, but I won't talk about this now. I'll talk about that later. So yeah, Ashura is a menace, bro. He is an absolute unit, and I don't mean that in a good way. I mean that in the worst way possible. So if you want to win at all costs, just pick Ashura and you'll make short work of anyone, without even breaking a sweat. Like, I've lost count of how many times I've met my maker at the hands of this jutsu. Not only is it broken in general and it has active frames, but it also has armor to boot, making it all the more aggravating to deal with. It's like it was made to piss you off. And you know, so many people, so many Storm players are already susceptible to rage and spam and toxicity. And making a game that favors this type of play is just... I'm not even gonna say anything, bro. I don't know. I'm speechless right now. So now we got Hagoromo's Divine Lightning Jutsu. And this is a jutsu that obviously has a lot of armor, and you can do it both on the ground and in midair. Now, Hagoromo as a character is pretty mid, and, you know, in terms of how his hitbox is, how his second jutsu is, he doesn't have a lot of redeeming qualities, but this is something that's very typical for this game. Like, you'll notice that so many of these characters are actually really mid, like they're like D tier or C tier. But they're being carried by their insanely hacked jutsus. And a lot of these characters are basically support only, in a way, because there's no reason to switch to them as your main, as your leader, because you'll only be at a disadvantage. It's basically a liability. But, you know, Hagoromo, this jutsu, oh my god, so it's kind of like, its properties are kind of akin to Ashura's jutsu, the second jutsu, but I'm gonna keep it a buck, bro. I feel like this jutsu is sometimes, like, it can be worse than Ashura's jutsu. So, first of all, this jutsu hits you, I don't know how many times it hits you, I don't know if it's 10 like Ashura's. All I know is it can break your guard incredibly easily, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, he just pops up and he hits you and your guard breaks. Chances are your guard will break, especially if it's not, you know, at full health, if that makes any sense. You can see this on the screen, like I'm, you know, here you can see some highlights of how easily this thing breaks your guard and how there's basically nothing you can do about it. So that's definitely a very annoying property of this jutsu. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. So, just like Ashura's jutsu, this jutsu has active frames. So, even after you've basically, you know, executed the jutsu, as long as this lightning is on the screen, you can get hit by it. And there have been so many instances that you can see here on the screen where I simply, you know, like I dodge the jutsu. And I immediately dash my opponent. And what ends up happening is I simply, you know, I get completely stunned by the jutsu. I get hit by the jutsu, you know? Like, I sub, but boop, you know, I dash immediately into the jutsu and I get hit by it. And I know, once again, you can make the argument, well, why do you dash, bro? Why do you dash? This happens to my friend as well. This is simply a thing that you shouldn't have to look out for this, bro. This is just a complete detriment, and it's not like some kind of strategic... There's no strategic value to this. It's just so broken. It gives you such an edge over everyone else. It's so immensely advantageous and disadvantageous to, well, you, if you're going up against that jutsu, that there's just nothing you can do about it. I'm showing you on the screen right now, you can see so many of these instances where I dash, and what ends up happening is I get hit, because this jutsu is active for like 5 seconds, and maybe even more. I don't know. It's just so incredibly annoying. It's the same exact thing with Ashura's Rasengan. You know, how they explode and they are active and you can get hit, you're vulnerable, there's no way to dodge it. It's just so vexatious. It's so incredibly annoying, bro. I just don't know. There's so many of these instances that at some point you just give up. You know, in this game, there comes a time where you're just, oh well, you know, and you know it's coming. You know it's coming, but there's nothing you can do about it. Chances are your hands are tied. Your options are limited. You can either sub, or, like so many times I've been in the air and I just try to somehow dodge the jutsu, but there's no way. And if you're out of subs, it's GG. So, like I said, you have all this on the screen. You can see how many times I basically, sub and then dash and it hits me. Sub and then I dash and it hits me. And it's just the most annoying thing on the planet. I have no words, but oh well. And here you can see how I barely moved. I subbed the jutsu, right? I subbed it. I dodged the jutsu. And now I didn't even move. And it still hit me. Well, how? Just explain this. Also, this jutsu, you know how when you counter your opponent, all of the jutsus they threw at you will be neutralized. Like, they won't hit you. Not with Hagoromo's jutsu, though. So here you can see how, my friend basically counters me, and the jutsu, like Hagoromo's jutsu, still hits him twice. Like, he basically counters, and it still hits him. Like, he dashes and it hits him. You can see this in, like, multiple instances, I think. Like, here, I had Ashura, and I countered Sasuke, and this Hagoromo, like, this Divine Lightning, still forced me to, waste my sub, and then I dashed, and I got hit again. Do you see how incredibly annoying this jutsu is, bro? I just can't. And here, I had Indra, and I countered Jigen, but Hagoromo's jutsu still hit me, and I subbed, and it still hit me. Bro, I can't, man. It's just so incredibly annoying. I just have no words. Also, did you know that this jutsu is actually immune to switching? So, like I said, you can circumvent these armors by switching, by leader switching. That's the only thing leader switching is good for in this game. But as you can see here, in this instance, like, I try, I basically have Ashura, and I'm comboing Jigen, and I attempt to switch to Indra. And I do, but Hagoromo's jutsu just hits everything, man. Everything. Here you can see how Hagoromo and Ashura basically, like, I used Ashura, and his Rasengan Kamehameha hit my opponent, my friend, and the Divine Lightning from Hagoromo hit me. So what ended up happening was we both got completely destroyed by these two insanely hacked jutsus. This is gameplay, bro. Like, this is how this game is meant to be played in CC2's eyes. Even if you hit Hagoromo, like here you can see how, basically, my friend has Sasuke, and I use Hagoromo. I summon him, and my friend hits Hagoromo, as you can see. So this should have interrupted the whole jutsu, but no! The jutsu still hits my friend! And that's not all. That's not all. So here you can see something that I cannot believe. My friend brought this to my attention, and because, I didn't see it at first. But, just bear with me here. So check this out. I have Ashura and I have Hagoromo as my support. My friend has Sasuke and he has Hagoromo as a support. The difference is my friend doesn't have Hagoromo available, so he can't summon him yet. But I have Hagoromo available. So, what ends up happening is I call Hagoromo and he does the Divine Lightning. This ends up wasting my friend's sub, so my friend has to waste his sub. But now I keep comboing him, and check this out. Hagoromo does this jutsu again, a second time, and it breaks my friend's guard. Just so you know, my storm gauge was not full. Hagoromo did not come back. He was gone. I called him and he did this jutsu, and that wasted my friend's sub. But then he did this jutsu again, completely unprompted. How is this possible? How does your support do a jutsu twice? This has never happened before in Storm 4 or any other Storm game to my knowledge. I just can't believe what this game has. And I haven't even gotten to the worst part, the resets with Hagoromo. Just like with Ashura, Hagoromo has this sub trap, this guard trap, whatever you want to call it. I will get to that later because it's seriously it's too much to take in. You've also got Shinra Tensei. This is one of the best jutsus in the game. And I know I say that a lot because there's so many broken jutsus in this game, but this is definitely one of the top 5, top 3, I don't know. This thing has, like, so many... It's got double armors, if I'm not mistaken. I don't really know. It's literally... Like, they took the term almighty push way too literally. This jutsu, man, it is an instant fuck you, basically. I'll show you this one instance, this one highlight from my friend. So, as you can see here, he's comboing. He has PTS Shino, and, like, he was playing against his brother. So, this guy has PTS Shino, and he is basically comboing intro, right? He's doing it, and now my friend summons Pain, and my friend switches, but this thing blows Boruto the fuck away, but he also blows Kabuto away, even though he switched, and now the guy loses, even though he was about to win. And you can see a lot of these instances of Shinra Tensei just completely destroying you. Like, you sub, and you're forced to waste the sub, and then, you know, you got a guard, otherwise it'll still hit you. Or it can break your guard, and you can see this so many times. Like, look at this, like, it breaks your guard. It is just such an annoying goddamn jutsu, man. I can't. Like, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. I just don't understand. Also, this kind of reminds me of Hinata, who is also insufferable. Her jutsu is so obnoxious. She can do it both on the ground and in midair. She's got all these armors. She's like an indispensable support now. Everybody has Hinata on their team. And it's just so stupid, man. It's just so stupid. I can't. Like, this jutsu, of course, hits like 64 times. I don't know, man. I'm just so tired of these jutsus, bro. Also, Hanzo. Of course, Hanzo. I don't know if you've noticed, but everybody's using Hanzo. I wonder why. Could it be that he's more viable now? Yeah, well, his Ibuse jutsu. Oh my god, man. You know that poison tags in this game deal an insane amount of damage? Yeah, well, every time you do a jutsu that has poison, like, let's say, Kabuto's thing or Ibuse, yeah, that thing basically inflicts the same amount of damage. It will ruin your HP. And also, Hanzo's jutsu has priority. It is an instant sub-waster. And you can see this on the screen like this, like right here. Like, look at this, man. Look at this. This is just so incredibly annoying. And, yeah, that's Hanzo for you. He's just such an annoying character with this Ibuse that it basically forces you to sub, and even if you sub, it'll still get you, and he can spam this infinitely. It's just so annoying. Now let's take a look at this quote-unquote combo that you can do with Hanzo. A very balanced character, by the way. Now, keep in mind, like, when you do this jutsu with Ibuse, it's the same as throwing a poison tag. It has the same properties, and it deals the same amount of damage. So, let's look at this very convoluted DMC level combo, alright? So, you just mash, and now you do the jutsu, now you throw the poison tag, now you do the jutsu, now you throw the defense tag, now you do the jutsu, now you keep mashing, and you basically cancel into an ultimate, and that is basically the whole combo. And look at that damage, bro. And I could have extended the combo even further, so... Of course, I forgot the man, the myth, the legend. I actually mentioned this guy in my first Storm Connections video about the mechanical changes. That was before the game's release. And it was beyond apparent to everybody that Storm 3 Naruto was going to be a menace. And he is. As you can see here, this guy wastes all of your subs with this jutsu. All your subs. Now, people can make, you know, I've seen some people make the argument, bro, don't complain. Just press one button and switch. First of all, it doesn't work that way. Sometimes you simply won't have your support available and you can't do anything. Also, even if you switch, you will simply, you know, get hit eventually, you know what I mean? It's just so annoying. It's such a like it puts you in a predicament that you shouldn't be in the first place. This is such an insane, like, unfair advantage that somebody has over you if they have Naruto, and or any of these characters that I've mentioned so far. But yeah, man, Naruto, I don't know why I haven't mentioned this guy, like, earlier, because he's, like, he's definitely a menace, bro. He's a menace. Now, I want to mention, I guess, Kakashi, even though this guy is really, nobody cares about him. Kakashi's Kamui Jutsu breaks your, like, guard. Like, even if you're guarding, it's unblockable, basically. You have a couple of unblockable jutsus in this game, like, I think the third Raikage's jutsu is unblockable, and Kakuzu's lightning jutsu is unblockable, and it's like, why is it unblockable? Why did you need this? You know, but these aren't two hacks, you know. They can be. They most certainly can be, but it's not really on the same echelon as, let's say, Ashura, Hagoromo, and all this other stuff that I mentioned so far. Moving on, I don't know, like, I think I should definitely mention Kiba. Now, Kiba is a character that is so incredibly OP. He's like top 3 or top 5, I don't really know. He's basically Neji on roids, bro. On steroids, on hemorrhoids, bro. In Storm 4, you had characters that had this insane hitbox. They had a lot of range. And you had Neji, Yugito, Storm 3 Kakashi, Nagato. These are the characters you pick if you want, you know, they're just mash-intensive characters. I don't know what dog food they've been feeding him and Akamaru, but this is just like, look at this. His first hit wastes 2 of your subs, and you can just spam this infinitely. His jutsu is OP. There have been so many instances of this jutsu just hitting you left, right, and center. You can't do anything about it. Like, he's just a top-tier character. Can you imagine, like, the state we're in? Where Kiba, a character from 2010, who no one ever used, ever. I don't remember a single period in the last 15 or 14 years. I don't remember a single time that Kiba was actually used online. But now, people are using him so much. It is goddamn nauseating, bro, because he's an easy win. You'll see this guy everywhere. Kiba is a menace, one of the top 3 characters. I don't know, like, I don't know, maybe like Ashura, Pain, Hanzo, Kiba. You know, these are the characters that come to mind when I think of... Oh, Minato, of course, Minato. Minato. This guy with the speed pill is the Flash. He's almost faster than 8 Gates guy in his awakening. And speaking of Minato, I really want to show you a combo. Like, you know, this game, like this, it has a really big emphasis on combos, right? And oh my god, it's all about combos. I want to show you something. I want to show you just how complex these combos are, you know? I'll show you this combo with Minato, right? So you just mash, and at this point you do a grab, which deals an insane amount of damage. And now you convert from this grab into a jutsu that deals even more damage. But wait, that's not all. You can convert from your first jutsu into your second jutsu and teleport to the enemy while they're down and hit them. And then you can extend the combo. Just keep mashing. And then again, do a jutsu. Then again, convert into the second jutsu. Then again, pill for more damage. And then continue mashing. This is a combo. This is a combo. Something that anyone can do. Anyone. This is like, I can't delineate. I've seen people complain about how, oh man, infinite combos, who's gonna learn all that? Bro, infinite combos, unlike Storm 4 where you actually, you know, have to learn that stuff by heart in a way, in this game, it is so much more intuitive because of the crumble animation. Almost every character in this game has an infinite, and for most characters, it's just incredibly easy to know exactly when to jump and stop the infinite, for example. Let's say Baryon Naruto, you can stop after the fists or after the rotation or even after the kick for the down combo. For Sasuke, it's like boop, boop, boop. And then after the third teleport, when he slams the enemy to the ground, you'll see the crumble state. And it's the same thing with like so many other characters like Indra, Ashura, Orochimaru, Mitsuki. Like there's usually some kind of pause in their combo, some kind of hit that will trigger the crumble animation. The only character where I feel this isn't really as obvious, like it's a little more counterintuitive, is Kage-sama Sasuke, because he doesn't really have a pause in his combos. Like his combos are just sword slashes, and they're not very distinct. It's just one big string of sword slashes. So sometimes I wouldn't do enough hits and I would jump before the crumble state, or I would do one additional hit and I would wake the enemy up and I would, jump, and this would just completely, either I would cancel the infinite too early or I would cancel it too late. This is the only character where I feel like the combo, like the infinite, is a little counterintuitive, but the more you practice, the more you'll get the hang of it. It's just that I've never really used Kage-sama Sasuke all that much. Now, you got Baryon mode Naruto's Rasengan, and this jutsu, like, his second jutsu, the one with the Kurama Bijou Bomb laser, that's really, really OP, not gonna lie. Like, that thing breaks your armor almost immediately. It even has this slight rotation thing. It's like, for some reason, I haven't been able to find a lot of recorded instances of this jutsu hitting me, but trust me, it is very OP. However, his first jutsu, this Otama Rasengan, is also nothing to scoff at. So, look at this. I want to show you this. So, I'm on the ground, obviously, and my friend is just doing the Rasengan. And he keeps doing it, and he keeps doing it, and there is nothing I can do to escape this loop. Because I have no subs. I can't do anything. I can just stand there, I can just lie there and take it. And that's all. Also here you can see how, this Otama Rasengan, just like every jutsu in the game, it has these invincibility frames, and it's active even after you sub it. So, here you can see how I basically hit my friend, and he basically subbed, but then he kind of basically dashed, and the Otama Rasengan hit him. And here you can see the same thing happening with me. Like, I dashed into the Rasengan despite subbing, and I got hit. So, yeah, this jutsu is actually, like I said, pretty damn OP, and it covers a very, very wide area, and you can do it both in midair and on the ground, so, yeah. PTS Shino's jutsu is also really, really OP. I've heard a lot of things about PTS Tamari's jutsu, but I've never actually seen it in action. I know it's really OP, but I don't really know. Still, PTS Shino, I've seen this guy drain people's subs so easily. It's actually scary. Like, PTS Shino is so viable now, and he has the best items in the game. Like, he's got the poison tag, he's got all this stuff. He is a monster now. So, yeah, that's just so funny to me. Momoshiki and Kawaki by extension, because they can both absorb jutsus in the same manner. This guy, he's pretty OP. His jutsu is actually pretty insane. It's got all these armors. It stays active for a very long period of time. Here you can see how many times I would, lose my subs because I would constantly dash into him, or I would be too close and he would just hit me. His jutsu is, his absorption jutsu is very, very, very viable. It's a very good jutsu, is what I'm trying to say. And the same goes for Kawaki. So Kawaki's absorption jutsu, like I said, it's pretty much like Momoshiki's absorption jutsu. It's got armors. As a matter of fact, sometimes I feel like it's faster in a way. So yeah, man, this jutsu is also incredibly difficult to deal with. It's maybe not difficult, but annoying. It's a hindrance. It can actually get you in the air. I also think Boruto's jutsu is noteworthy. It's really, really, really annoying to deal with. It's kind of like a dollar store, the last Naruto or Sengon jutsu. It doesn't have infinite range. I mean, it doesn't have as much range, but it is omnidirectional, so it hits you from all sides. You can see so many instances of this jutsu just completely burning your subs. It's just so incredibly difficult to deal with. And like I said, you can simply switch, but sometimes you won't have your support available and it won't be enough. So I feel like it's only fair that I show you a few instances, a few highlights of this jutsu being cancerous. So yeah, I guess I could also throw in Boro's jutsu, which is incredibly, incredibly annoying. But I don't have a lot of recorded instances of this jutsu, unfortunately. And like I said, in this game, almost every jutsu is broken. It's just a matter of how broken it is. Is it like insanely broken? Is it exceptionally broken? Is it incredibly broken? But, it's all a matter of just how broken the jutsu is. But you already know there is no such thing as a normal jutsu. I have seen people spam Rasengans against professional players like a complete random, one against my friend, by simply spamming Rasengans. My friend, who doesn't really have a lot of experience with the Storm series, managed to beat me once simply by spamming Rasengans or other armor jutsus. My friend, he was playing this random. He didn't land a single hit on him. Not a single hit. And all the health that he took from my friend, it was all from these armored jutsus. And it really didn't help that my friend couldn't sub because the game couldn't register his subs. Also, Sage Kabuto is a lot more viable now because of his jutsu. This jutsu, like the snakes, this orb that he has, yeah, that shit actually has armor. And it stays active. And there have been so many instances where this jutsu just completely destroys you. It's not even funny. Oh man, a live Hashirama, Asuma, man, there's so many characters in this game that have broken jutsus. It's like everybody has a broken jutsu now. It's only a matter of how broken the jutsu is. Now, Jigen. Bro, Jigen is a really overpowered character. He's got a really good hitbox. He's got really good items. With the speed pill, he's insane. And he's just a good character all around, right? But I want to focus on his jutsu. Like his first jutsu. Sukuna Hikona, with the rods. So nobody really talks about this jutsu. And I think that really speaks volumes about, I think it's pretty telling of the state this game is in. In Storm 4, this jutsu would be considered like top 1. It'd be one of the most broken jutsus in the game. But in this game, there's so many other broken jutsus that this jutsu kind of pales in comparison. But I still need to bring this up. So this jutsu is incredibly fast. It's a get out of jail free card. So you do this jutsu, and Jigen will automatically backdash. He will teleport back. So if you try to hit him, you can't because he teleported backwards. And he will fire these rods like a missile. Like 0.001 milliseconds. It is such a fast jutsu. Like, as you can see here on the screen, so many of these highlights where this jutsu is just so incredibly fast. You just can't do anything. It will waste your sub, or if you're out of subs, it will hit you, and you'll be sent rolling. Which is just going to look really ridiculous, but, it's just the kind of jutsu that it's like, I'm going to take the risk because it's not a risk. I'm just going to do this jutsu, and it will hit you. 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10, this jutsu will connect. There is no reason not to use it. It hits from the back, it hits from behind, it hits from everywhere, man. It's just such an insanely viable jutsu. I keep saying viable, but viable would mean like, oh, it's good to use, which it is, but I can't delineate, it's not the right word. I want to say just, it's such a broken jutsu. It's such a bullshit-ass broken jutsu. It is just so fast. But like I said, people don't really talk about it because there's so many other jutsus that are so much more broken. So Jigen's jutsu is actually a dime a dozen here in this game. So it's really, you know, there's really nothing to write home about. I also want to bring up how insane the tracking on this jutsu is. I think it's got unlimited range, but that's not all. Look at this. My friend basically, like, Jigen does the jutsu, all right? And my friend obviously moves away and he ninja moves, like he dodges. And look at this tracking, bro. Look at this. These things just completely, like, destroy him. And as a result, I end up basically hitting my opponent and I end up doing an ultimate. So this thing can decide matches. Do you realize, like, this is what I keep talking about. Like, how, like, this game, there is no semblance of competitiveness. There is absolutely nothing because in these pivotal, in these crucial moments, you have things like subs not registering, which are like the most valuable asset in this game, or jutsus just hitting you out of nowhere, tracking you, destroying you. There's just no way to take this game seriously, you know what I mean? Like, it's just broken all around. It's like, you can win against anyone. You can win against a Storm 4 veteran who has like 7,000 hours in the game. And if that's fair, then I don't really know what to say. Here you can see how, you know, you can see two broken jutsus in action. So Ashura and Jigen. And even though I did Ashura's jutsu, Jigen's rod somehow went through the Rasengan Kamehameha, or maybe that's because he did it beforehand, I don't really know. But as a result, I got sent flying by the rods, and my friend was still hit by Ashura's jutsu, simply because he was too close to the wall. Oh man, I just can't, you can't make this up. Also, you know, Jigen actually has a charged jutsu, where he does Sukuna Hikona, but he basically teleports behind the enemy. You know, he does the rods. So I want to show you this one highlight where my friend has Kakashi, right? Little Kakashi. And I do these rods, and he blocks, like, he blocks the rods. And it's over. Like, all right, good job, you blocked the rods. And now he lets go of his guard, and the rods hit him. They hit him, bro. Look at this. Like, he blocked, and then he lets go of his guard after blocking, and these things hit him after they basically exploded and shattered. That means that even this jutsu has active frames, and you're not safe. So even with this jutsu, you're forced to sub, to waste your subs, or you're forced to simply die if you don't have subs, or you're forced to block, which will eventually cause your guard to break, and then you'll be out of subs. Yeah, oh my god, man, I just can't. Ugh. This is just repugnant, man. A similar thing happens here with Indra's lightning ball. So it's like the lightning residue hits this guy, like, after it actually hit the ground. It kind of reminds me of Sarada's lightning flicker jutsu that, like, you know, leaves trails of lightning as it hits you. So even if you dodge it, if you immediately dash, the lightning will kind of, you know, get you. But I don't know if this was intentional. I have no idea. All I know is it looks so ridiculous when this happens. I'm so tired of this insanely stupid property that these jutsus have of, you know, oh, well, active frames all the time. Like, even if you sub, even if you dodge, even if you block, whatever you do, this thing is going to be active and you will be susceptible to it. It's just so annoying, man. Now, I know you can make the argument that, you know, like, oh, well, you know, if the jutsu is active after you sub and dash, then just don't dash. Like, yeah, sure, that's a habit, but that's not the point. That's beside the point. Because the fact of the matter is, it still detracts from the experience nonetheless. I shouldn't have to worry about this. I shouldn't have to worry about this omnipotent jutsu that you can't counter or avoid or do anything against. It's just such an aggravating circumstance. Also, my friend, who's an advanced player, was literally just like, PTS Naruto, he has that Demon Wind Shuriken jutsu, like Demon Wind Bomb. He can do it both on the ground and in midair, and that thing has 360 tracking. Like, look at this. Look at this. Like, my friend had to waste subs. It still hit him. And on top of that, this jutsu has back hits. As you can see here, my friend used it against me, and I was too close to him, and I just got hit from the back. Which kind of ties into something else I want to talk about, back hits in this game. Now, back hits were a thing back in Storm 4 as well. I think it got patched for the most part, but I do remember it still happening when you're on the edge of the map or something, But here, you can see this happen so many times with Sarada, with Kiba, and I just don't know, man. It's just so ridiculous to me that these jutsus have armors, they're cancelable, they have all these properties that make them so incredibly overpowered, but even if you dodge and you touch the enemy from behind, that's kind of sus, you still get hit by the jutsu. Now I want to discuss some very weird things, like some glitches that I've experienced in this game. So I can't really demonstrate this in any way, so I won't do it, but there have been instances where both me and my friend would get button locked, and it usually happens with Indra, but sometimes it happens with Jigen as well, and sometimes we're pressing the chakra button, but chakra isn't coming out, and instead of doing, a chakra dash, we do a normal dash or something like that. And it's just, what's going on? It's just so weird. Here you can see how I'm doing this combo with Indra, and the lightning literally doesn't hit my opponent. It didn't hit him because I look like they're doing the crumble state, but it's not because of that. Like, the lightning literally didn't hit him. And as a result, when I try to do this team ultimate, it didn't really pick the enemy up. It's just so incredibly weird how these things happen at the edge, like at the end of the map, like when it's like a wall. So, yeah, it's just really annoying. Here you can see how my friend subbed Itachi's ultimate, and it still hit him. It's just so funny to me, but I don't know, maybe it was like this in Storm 4 as well. I don't really recall. All I know is it looks really funny. Here you can see this air glitch, or whatever you want to call it. It happened a few times. These are only, 2 instances that I recorded. I don't know, man. It just looks funny. It's not really all that common. Here you can see Jigen's cube tracking. So this is a video that my friend sent me from this channel here, and just look at this, man. Now, I've personally never experienced this ever with this jutsu in particular, but yeah, man, this is just one of the things that you can encounter in this game. It's just comedy gold, really. Here you can see this one thing that I don't really know how to explain. Like, I dashed my opponent while I was in the air, right? By all means, I should have hit my enemy, I should have bumped into him, and I should have started comboing him. His guard was down, he didn't counter me, but instead, I fly past my opponent, and he actually ends up comboing me, and I lose. I literally would have won otherwise. What exactly happened here? How is this possible? And look at this, like, the chakra is sparking after the whole thing. I don't understand, and my friend couldn't explain this either. Like, we're still completely, like, puzzled by this. And I saw this same thing on one of Poison Akami's streams. Like, here you can see the same exact thing. So a regular ninja dash, just jumping twice, somehow has priority over air chakra dashes or something. I'm not sure how this works. But one thing that I really want to slide in here is Koji's subs. Now, what I mean by that is, now, obviously, when you sub, that's basically just dodging an attack. And usually, you dodge an attack and you teleport behind the enemy or somewhere or in the air or I don't know. Not for Koji, though. So, look at these few instances here. Well, there are 2 instances, so you can see that my friend, he has Kakashi, and he's using Chidori, right? And I sub the attack, like I dodge the attack. And now I appear directly in front of the attack, which I dodged, which I subbed, and I get hit by Chidori nonetheless. What? Why, bro? And it's not just, this isn't the only instance, like I said. So, check this out. So, my friend has Koji, right? And here, you can see how I'm basically, like I have Jigen, and I hit my friend, and he subs, right? Like, he dodged my attack, and he appears in the same exact spot, and I continue hitting him. So he wasted a sub, and now he's forced to use another. Imagine if he had no subs. I would have just started comboing him. It would have been GG. Why does this happen? And I think it's not just Koji. I think there are some other characters that are like that, who, like, you sub, and they dodge the attack, and they immediately appear in the same position, which completely kills the purpose of subbing. So I have no idea what that's all about, but it's just incredibly annoying. Also, sometimes this damage scaling is completely fucked. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. So, you know how damage scaling level 3 kicks in after, was it 30 hits or 40? I don't know, whatever. But look at these instances. Like, bro, alright, come on, you're hitting me, bro. This down combo, finisher, should have killed me. I should have been dead even, like, way before then. But whatever, sure, you could argue, alright, whatever. It happens. But here, alright, so I'm doing this air combo with Sasuke, and now I do the Dragon Flame Caterwall. Alright, it should have killed, but it didn't. So Naruto is currently on 0 HP. He's zombie mode right now. And as you can see here on the left side, like, basically it's 22 hits. One more hit, and he should be dead. Maybe 2 tops. Alright, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8! Bro! It took 8 hits to kill this man while he was on 0 HP. Mind you, it's not just that he was on 0 HP. It's not just that. He was on 0 HP, plus his armor was broken, meaning that he takes damage more easily, plus I had the attack pill, which significantly boosts my damage. And it took like 10 hits, and by the way, this wasn't damage scaling level 3 or anything. This was after like 20 hits. You're telling me? Oh man, I don't know, man. This is just completely just unacceptable in my opinion. And so many times something like this will happen, and you'll lose the match because the scaling is completely weird. I've seen people go A-Gates Guy, like Awakening mode, and they do that Sakujaku air combo like 4 times in a row while their opponent has 0 HP, and the opponent is still alive somehow. Like, what is this scaling, man? Is this intentional? Is this a glitch? I have no idea. All I know is it's incredibly annoying.
Another thing that's kind of crucial, and I can't believe I haven't mentioned it yet, is resets. So, you know how in this game you can pick enemies up from the ground, like convert from air combo and all that jazz? Yeah, well, like I said in my previous video, there's damage scaling in this game. So after you land 10 hits, you will deal less damage. And after you basically deal 20 hits, you'll deal even less damage. After 30 plus hits, you'll get essentially like 0.01% damage. So let's say you somehow got your opponent in this very long combo, and they wasted all their subs. You could continue the combo by using tags, pills, grabs, jutsus, but, that's definitely a combo. But at some point, you'll hit the 30 to 40 hits mark, and at that point you might as well stop hitting your opponent because you're inflicting miserable amounts of damage. So what you should do instead is end the combo, either by doing a grab or a combo finisher, like, I don't know, down combo, for instance, and then use a shuriken to wake your opponent up and then continue comboing them. So let me explain. When your opponent is on the ground in this game, you can throw a shuriken or a kunai, and this will reset the damage scaling, and you will inflict a lot of damage this way. So let's take this example. As you already know, in this game, grabs deal a lot of damage, but if I'm like 20 to 30 hits in, as you can see here, my grab is basically doing very low damage. So what you should do instead is wake the opponent up, and this will now get your damage scaling level to 0. It will reset the damage scaling, and now you continue comboing. You don't even have to be an advanced player. This is just basic connections gameplay. You just, summon a support, and then simultaneously wake your opponent up with a shuriken, and then you do a grab or start comboing your opponent. So while the opponent is busy blocking the support's jutsu, you have the liberty to do whatever the hell you want. And this is even worse when it's Ashura, as you can see here. Because Ashura's jutsu, in conjunction with these resets, is a recipe for disaster. And this doesn't take any skill, as you can see. Like, even my friend mocks these resets. Even Rikudo Itachi said as much on his stream. This is brain dead. Anyone can do this and inflict insane amounts of damage and win. And this, this whole mechanic, like these shuriken resets, they render damage scaling completely useless. Because, I'm just going to throw a shuriken and continue comboing you. I'm going to throw a shuriken and simultaneously call my support, and while you're busy blocking the support's jutsu, I'm just going to grab you. It's so fucking insulting, bro.
So I mentioned resets earlier. And I said how there's like this one thing with Ashura and Hagoromo in particular that I really want to show you. So this is what I meant. So look at this. Look at this. So I am basically, my friend is comboing me and he calls Ashura, right? And I am basically being forced to guard, right? And then he does this grab and he grabs me. So that's basically... there's nothing I can do about that. Nothing at all. And then he does it again. He basically resets me with a shuriken, and this jutsu hits me, and I'm basically not even able to guard now, and he just does the grab. And I didn't want to sub because I didn't want to waste my subs yet, and that happens. So, the thing is, when you reset someone like this with a shuriken, you inflict 100% damage. So, it's just foolproof. Here, the same thing happens. I'm guarding, and I have my hands full guarding Ashura's jutsu. I'm blocking, and he does this grab. And there's just nothing at all that I can do. Same thing here. He throws a shuriken at me. I'm forced to guard. He does the jutsu with Ashura, and then he does this. Same thing here. Same thing in all of these instances. Do you see what I mean? Like, look at this. Shuriken, Ashura summon, and then this, and bro. And then you can do anything. Anything at all. Anything at all, man. Like, just shuriken, and then even, like, you can see here. You can even see this here. Like, look at this. He does this, he hits me once, he does the shuriken, and now I don't guard. I try to escape. Foolishly, though, because Ashura's jutsu hits me anyway, and my friend manages to grab me. This is just so comical, man. Same thing here. He basically wakes you up with a shuriken, he resets you, he summons the support, and then he basically does this grab, and he just destroys you. Like, there's nothing you can do about this. I saw this in the tournament. Like, you just wake your enemy up with a shuriken to make sure that, you inflict 100% damage. You just simultaneously call Ashura while doing this. Your enemy will be hit, or they will be busy, like, they'll have their hands full blocking the jutsu, and in that moment, you basically just grab, and that is it. That is basically gameplay. That's how this game works. This is something, these resets, I cannot delineate. I can't stress just how frequent this is. You can't even call this a tactic. This doesn't require any skill whatsoever. You just throw a shuriken, and then simultaneously press one button to call your support. They will do a jutsu, your enemy will be completely destroyed, and you can grab them or do whatever you want. An ultimate anything. And if they're out of subs, then they definitely have no choice. So that's Ashura, but Hagoromo is actually, he might even be worse. Like you can see here, he does the same thing, like Shuriken, calling Hagoromo to do the Divine Lightning, and then grab. And it's something that happens like in all these instances, like Shuriken, call Hagoromo, I gotta block, and while I'm blocking, he basically grabs me. Same here. Same in all of these instances that you can see here on the screen. There is nothing you can do. You get woken up with a shuriken, like you just throw a shuriken at somebody to wake them up, and now you try to block, and the jutsu is basically hitting you, and during that whole time, you basically get grabbed. There is literally nothing you can do about this. Nothing at all. The fact that shurikens can reset you like this, it's just, and you can do this multiple times in a row, like I showcased with, I think, Ashura, if I'm not mistaken, earlier. So, just enjoy this showcase that I'll basically, play here. The bottom line is, the addition, the inclusion of these resets is just like a net negative on the game. There's nothing good about this. It doesn't require skill. It's simple to use. Anyone can do it, and there's nothing you can do about it. And this is basically the essence of this game. So many instances where you know what's coming. You can predict it, but your knowledge won't be rewarded or your speed because there's nothing you can do. This game has been so streamlined and so casualized that I don't even know if that's a word, but it's just so incredibly, it's nauseating, bro. It's nauseating. Like it's just like playing this game. It's not even fun, right? You're just basically laughing at how bad it is, at how little sense it makes. Just look at all this, bro. Just look at it. Feast your eyes. This game is, for all intents and purposes, a joke. It's a travesty, and it only reinforced everyone's belief that, CC2 will simply never change. Oh, and did I mention that subs sometimes simply won't register? Like I mentioned that a few times, how, my friend was subbing, but it didn't work. Yeah, like you sometimes, like you press the sub button 50 times, but it simply doesn't work.
Bro, I am subbing. That shit needs to be patched, bro.
And subs are so precious in this game that not subbing in the right millisecond can make or break the match. It can determine the outcome of the game. And yet, this insanely important resource, sometimes, like, it just doesn't work. It's such a common occurrence, in fact, that it's become completely normalized. Me and my friend, we already know, like, oh, well, haha, you had all 4 subs, but you didn't dodge my attack. Yeah, it's obvious that something was wrong there. And like I said, running out of subs in this game can prove fatal, and sub management is everything. But on the same note, it's so easy to lose subs because you have so many jutsus that will force you to waste subs. And like I said, that's one resource you cannot afford to expend very fast. And yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, and now add to the fact that you have so many jutsus that burn your subs. Imagine adding to that the fact that sometimes subs don't work, like they won't register. It's just adding insult to injury, honestly. And then add to that all of these characters, like if you're facing off against someone using Hanzo, Pain, Minato, Kiba, whatever, you don't have a ghost of a chance. Now, another thing that really needs to be brought up is counters. So in Storm 4, countering wasn't free. Like, you can't just counter infinitely. It was a resource that was very much expendable, in a way. So, you can only counter 3 times in a row in Storm 4, and each time you counter, your chakra bar gets sealed. So, you lose more and more chakra in a way, and you can't even charge it. So, this discouraged people from spamming counters, and you would be on a cooldown. You would have to wait for your counter, for your chakra to come back. And additionally, countering was a very, like, sometimes you could use it, like, it had strategic value, is what I'm trying to say. I've never really been a big fan of counters, like, even in Storm 4, My playstyle has never been a very counter-intensive playstyle, but still, you know, it was fair for the most part in Storm 4. But, you know, the thing is, in Storm 4, you could do this thing, like, let's say your opponent is trying to awaken, and you don't want to let them awaken. Awakenings are very OP in this game, so you can try and pressure your opponent into countering you, and when they counter you, their chakra gets sealed and they can't awaken, so they gotta wait for the chakra to come back. In Storm Connections, countering is an infinite resource, if you could even call it a resource. It's more of a mechanic. I feel like this is completely brain dead. Not only are people spamming counters left, right, and center, it's a counter galore, as you can see here. Like, and by the way, these players are actually very good players. They're amazing players. I'm just trying to showcase what this game is, like what the essence of the game is, how you're supposed to play it. So there is no need for you to watch out. If you feel pressured, you can just spam counters all the time. Nothing is there to discourage you from doing this, you know? And the worst part of this is counter into awakening. You can counter someone and then awaken in their face, and there is nothing they can do about it. So like I said, in Storm 4, this wasn't the case. If you pressure someone enough, they will be forced to counter, and then they will lose access to their awakening for a time. But here, you can just counter someone and literally awaken in their face, and there is nothing you can do about it. I feel like this is completely brain dead. I've seen that a lot of people agree with me. Even if you have a defensive playstyle, this is just all around horrible. And I feel like counters, like at the very least, I feel like counters should cost chakra like they did in Storm 4. I literally don't see what the purpose of this is. Like, I literally don't understand. But yeah, that's one thing that I really have to get out of the way.
Another thing I find incredibly aggravating in this game is tags and pills. Now, tags can be used infinitely, and they basically incapacitate you for what feels like 10 seconds sometimes, and naturally, in all that time, you're practically immobilized. But that's not my gripe with tags. I'm alright with that. What I'm not alright with is how broken some of these tags are. Namely the poison tag.
So the amount of damage these poison tags inflict is literally insane. And I'll show you this clip, this video from Killaboy88. Check out his video. He made a really good video, shit-talking connections. And just look at this. I'll play this.
Now watch this. Watch this. Watch this. Look at that damage. Look at it. Look at that. Look at that. Look at all that! Look! Do it 2 times? Hold on, bro. Bro, is his whole bar gone off that? Bro, the whole bar is gone!
And to add insult to injury, every single jutsu that has poison, like Hanzo's Ibusei jutsu, or, you know, Kabuto's snake poison thing, or whatever, all of these, like, jutsus that have poison, they act as poison tags, so they inflict the same amount of damage, as far as my knowledge goes. So this is simply insane. But there's another thing that I want to talk about, the speed pill. Now, I mentioned how Minato especially gains an insane advantage. He gains an insane boost with the speed pill. He becomes the Flash. He's, like, equal to 8 Gates guy in his awakening. But it's not just Minato, though. Every single character becomes a literal monster with the speed pill. I can't delineate, I can't stress just how insanely broken the speed pill is. Man, I can't, my friend especially, like, he can't, like, get enough of how insanely absurd the speed pill is. Like, you just become the Flash. Like, you move at light speed. You just keep, like, spamming the speed pill, and your opponent cannot react. Well, they can, but it gives you an insane advantage. I just wish I could showcase this a little better, but I don't think playing videos and examples of this gives it, like, I don't think that does it justice. I feel like you have to play this. It's not until you've played the game and used the speed pill yourself that you're able to realize just how big of a boost this is, and how, like, it feels like a glitch. It's like you're not even playing Storm anymore.
I said how this game probably has the most radical changes in the series, and I still stand by that. You know, they're anything but negligible, and some of them do have some merit to them. You know, there are some redeeming qualities. I still think nerfing dash cuts and, you know, awakening times, the combo potential, I think all of these, like, these are all very commendable changes. As for chakra regeneration, I thought that chakra regenerating on its own would kind of, like, you know, obviate the need for you to manually charge chakra, but I was wrong. You still gotta charge it. It's just not as crucial, you know. It's still a good change in my opinion. I don't mind it. By the way, you do realize that chakra regenerated automatically in Storm 4 as well, albeit very slowly. It was barely noticeable, so, you know. Now, some people are complaining about the guard being too fragile and very easily penetrable, but I don't mind it personally. I mean, I do think it could be a little stronger, but I have personally not experienced too many issues in this respect, so... But yeah, I don't think chakra regeneration is a bad thing. I think it's a pretty cute change, and as a matter of fact, I know some people who really struggled in Storm 4, and it was kind of annoying having to just constantly charge your chakra. I know that sounds like a noob thing to say, and I personally never struggled with, like, chakra management unless I was up against an advanced player and, you know, I couldn't take a breather at all. But overall, I think that chakra regenerating on its own is a good change. Now, pickups and combo potential, and the fact that almost every character has an infinite combo, and that they're more accessible now and, you know, easier to perform, I think this is also a good change. I think it definitely spices things up. You know, there's no downtime. It kind of makes for a high octane experience. You know, it gives the game this, like, faster pace, and I think that's a good thing overall. Now, you know, the fact that items are infinite, now, I don't think this is a bad change per se. I don't think it's a bad thing when you look at it, but I do think that maybe the cooldown should be more strict, especially for the speed pill and the poison tag. And of course, I think that the poison tag and the speed pill should be significantly nerfed. But having infinite items, I feel like, you know, it's a good change overall, because, you know, you can use these items during combos, you can use them to, like, have more style, you know, if that makes any sense. Even though these combos are very, like, easy to do and they're kind of superficial in a way, I still think it's a nice thing, you know, having it, because in Storm 4, if you don't rely on tech, if you're not familiar with switch tech, you're essentially doing the same thing over and over again. It's the switch tech in Storm 4 that adds this whole layer of complexity to the game. Otherwise, it's just kind of mashing. And if you're not familiar with that, which a lot of casual players aren't, you know, then you're kind of setting yourself up for a more boring experience. This isn't to say that Storm 4 is boring if you don't use switch tech, but you get the point. It's still a fun game, but I feel like having combos is a good thing, even though these combos are very easy to perform and are overall just, you know, not very complex. Now, also another change that I really like is the fact that, you know, in Storm 4, you input a jutsu, but it doesn't immediately come out, like, frame 1. It's kind of delayed. I think this is a bad thing, and I think in Storm Connections, the fact that you got so much combo potential, it kind of stems from the fact that as soon as you input something, it will, like, immediately come out. And I think that's a good thing overall. So, yeah, there's that. The fact that, you know, grab damage is increased is definitely a good change, because grabs were kind of, I don't want to say useless in previous Storm games, but they were highly situational, you know, like, they don't deal a lot of damage, you can't really convert off them, so, you know, it was just kind of like I said, they were highly situational. But in this game, it actually gives you an incentive to use grabs, because they deal jutsu damage in a way. So, yeah, grabs, yeah, dealing more damage, I think that's a great thing. The fact that you no longer have guard break ultimates is also a great thing, because, well, it was a cheap kind of thing in Storm 4. I didn't really like it, and, I mean, it was no deal breaker, but I do think it's a good change. Now, like I said, shorter awakening times, definitely a critical, like a really, really good change in my opinion. I still think awakening should be nerfed to like once per match or once per round, because they're just that OP, but, you know. Now, the fact that, and this isn't a gameplay issue, but a gameplay change, but the fact that all stages are back, I think that's a great thing. I've been begging for this for, like, a decade now. I really love the stages in Storm. Like, it really adds to the atmosphere. Now, the fact that, you know, support actions are only, you know, usable if your storm gauge is at 100%, like if your storm gauge is full, that's when you can use your support actions. I think this is an amazing change, and this is the change that nerfed dash cuts by extension, because in Storm 4, you know, the storm gauge it lasted about 30 seconds, or maybe even more, I don't remember exactly, and during these 30 seconds, dash cuts were constantly available, but in Storm Connections, the storm gauge is only 15 seconds, and, you know, it's way less, so dash cuts aren't as active for as long. And not only that, but in Storm 4, you could use dash cuts, or I think any of your support actions, when half of your storm gauge was full. In Storm Connections, you can only use your support actions when your storm gauge is at a 100%. So not only can you only use your support actions if your storm gauge is full, as opposed to being half full, but you can also, basically, it also lasts less, you know, so I think this is a great change, because, you know, in Storm 4, dash cuts would be active for like a minute and a half sometimes, and this is just a really, really good change in my opinion. Now, the fact that chip damage no longer kills, I feel like this is also a pretty commendable change. I think it's pretty cool, because in Storm 4, if you're on 0 HP, and you're guarding, and you block a jutsu, you would die. And this was kind of annoying at times whenever I was zombie mode and trying to make a comeback, but now that's no longer the case, and I think that's a good thing. Now, the fact that health bars, like your health and your opponent's health, like both health bars reset after every new round, I also feel like this is a good thing overall. I'm kind of indifferent towards it, but, well, nah, I think it's a good thing, alright? I think it's a laudable change. So, the timer is paused during cutscenes, like, you know, neutral and down combo finishers and grabs and ultimates and awakening animations. So, while these cinematics are playing, you know, the timer doesn't really, time doesn't pass. And finally, the fact that you no longer have armor break frames, I think this is an amazing thing, because in Storm 4, armor break frames would just completely ruin the flow of your combo because of the zoom-in effect, and, like, it was just a really useless thing, and I think it's really good that they took note of this. And yeah, I think that was a pretty cool change. Now, I've seen a lot of hate for these noob-friendly mechanics, like, you know, infinite items, the fact that infinite combos are easier to perform, the fact that you got pickups, chakra regeneration, all that. And honestly, you know, I don't think things like resource management and infinite combos are something that you should gatekeep. Like I said, just because something became easier to perform and more accessible, it doesn't mean it's necessarily bad in and of itself. I feel like the hate for this whole, you know, like, for infinite combos being simpler and the game being streamlined in this sense, I feel like that hate is kind of unwarranted in a way. But hey, what do I know? I'm not an advanced player, so, you know, some of these noob-friendly mechanics are kind of cute in my opinion. They kind of spice things up, even though it's still very surface level and it's very superficial. I still think it's cute, and, yeah. I know I mentioned this, but tilts are gone. They're replaced with these second jutsus. Now, these second jutsus are actually tilts in most cases. For some characters, they've been replaced, like Jiraiya no longer has that toad thingy, instead he has the Dragon Flame Bombs, Orochimaru has that wind-style jutsu, Tsunade has Katsuyu, Asuma has this blade thingy, so a lot of characters have new jutsus. But I feel like most characters, like 70%, just have their old tilts remapped to their second jutsu, like Roshi, Yagura, Danzo, the last Sasuke, Ime Sasuke, so on and so forth. I can go on and on and on. They basically just took their tilts, changed the commands, gave them armors, and that's it. That's it. I really don't understand what the purpose of this was, other than to make it seem as though they've introduced some new groundbreaking mechanic, you know? But this is just reinventing the wheel. It's the epitome of that, because, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There was nothing wrong with tilts. They were pretty cute, unique moves that could help you get out of combos, you know? And, this is just basically, let's be honest, this is not a change. It's literally something any modder could do. Like, so many changes in this game are just completely unsolicited. Like, nobody asked for any of this, nobody wanted this, yet you did it anyway. It's just something that boggles my mind. As for pickups, I was initially scared of them, but now I think they're a great addition, and I think they add a lot of versatility to the game. And damage scaling basically mitigates, well, you know, the damage you take, so it should all be good in theory, but it isn't in practice because you have resets that completely kill the whole purpose of damage scaling and render it completely useless, because you can just throw a shuriken and wake your enemy up and it's over. So, yeah, I said how I feel like this game has been streamlined to oblivion, like it's a watered down version of Storm 4. I feel like it kind of makes you forfeit your brain, basically. And I think that 60 FPS is definitely this game's main saving grace, you know? If it was still 30, I'm not sure it would have... I think it would have even less players than it currently has.
Also, there's another peculiarity that I want to mention. Sometimes the game locks itself to 30 FPS for no apparent reason. Like, you just can't... Oh, and one thing that I really want to bring up, this is just really annoying, and I don't know if it's just me. It can't be just me, because I know for a fact it's not just me, because my friend agrees. In this game, you know how every Storm game is basically capped at 30 FPS, so you play at 30 FPS, but it's completely playable. When you try to play Connections at 30 FPS... it's not 30, it's like 15. I swear to God, it's not me. I turn on VSync, I turn off VSync, it doesn't matter. The 30 FPS in Connections, it's like 10 FPS in Storm 4. I know it's not just me, bro. They did something to the frame rate. And it's not because I'm used to 60 now. Believe me, I went back to Storm 4 to just test this whole thing. And yeah, absolutely, the 30 FPS is just, like, 30 FPS in this game is completely unplayable. Like, I don't see why you would ever play this game at 30 FPS. And like I said, sometimes this whole thing happens and the game just, you know... I don't know, man. Sometimes, like, my friend, like, we play the game, and it stays on communicating after the match is done, and sometimes it stays like that for 3 minutes. I don't know what this depends on. I don't know on whose end this is, but it's just so incredibly annoying. But yeah, like I said so many times, like, me and my friend would just go, alright, wanna play, man? And I'm like, sure, bro. And we try to play, and it takes us, like, a whole hour to just start the damn game. And in the end, it's like, oh, alright, so Menu-sama won the match. Like, he won all the games, bro. Like, it's just so incredibly vexing. I don't have any words.
And knowing CC2, they'll probably completely turn a blind eye to the most detrimental issues, and they'll focus instead on minor issues. They'll zero in on things that no one cares about, and it really makes little to no difference whether or not they decide to patch characters like Ashura, Hanzo, Pain, and all that, when there are still so many other characters that you can wreak havoc with online that also have to be nerfed. So you have to do everything, go big or go home. You cannot afford to leave any stones unturned because it's got to be all or nothing. If you only nerf a couple of characters, people will simply resort to using the countless other broken characters they have at their disposal. So being dismissive about all of these issues that are currently in the game is a luxury they can no longer afford. The fanbase is livid. Most people abandoned the game at launch because CC2 abandoned the game at launch. But for all we know, they might not fix anything at all. I mean, if Storm 4 is anything to go by, then it's almost guaranteed they won't fix the thing. But, alright, I'll gladly withdraw all my statements from this video. I'll concede as long as they fix the game. Which I know full well they will never do, so I got nothing to worry about. Now let's take a trip down memory lane. Look at Storm 4. Hell, look at all the previous Storm games for that matter. But now let's focus on Storm 4 for now, alright? So, to give you some perspective so you can get a better picture of CC2's modus operandi, so the journey of Storm 4 is a tumultuous one paved with endless hardship. So Storm 4 dropped in February of 2016. No support. Abandoned. 3 Season Pass DLCs, only one of which contained playable characters, the Sound 4. One of which is the most broken character in the game, Tayuya. In addition, they released an expansion pack about a year later that charged you for costumes that were free in previous Storm games. On the same note, the main villains of this expansion had 80% of their moveset done but were not made playable until 3 years after the fact. So, 2 DLC characters 3 years later after the game dropped. No bug fixes, nothing. Furthermore, they released a patch that made the game so unplayable that the fanbase had to resort to making petitions so they could revert the changes. Bro, oh, and just a friendly reminder that Storm 4 sold the most copies of any anime game ever, and CC2 chose not to capitalize on this limitless potential, and instead left the game to basically die. No updates, no DLCs, nothing. Meanwhile, Xenoverse 2, even Naruto Shinobi Striker, Jump Force, all of these games got so many new characters and new content. It's just sad. But now that I've jogged your memory regarding Storm 4, we can move on. It's kind of crazy how, with every new Storm game, the amount of problems basically proliferates. Like, with every new Storm game, they ruin more shit. Right now, we're back to square one. Like, we're at Revolution now. Storm 5, if it ever happens, will take us back to the Storm 1 days. No subs, no nothing. Sure, it can interrupt your dashes and all. So, but no, seriously, like, this game is more akin to Revolution in Storm 3 than it is to Storm 4, since it's more reliant on support calling than it is on switching, and Storm Connections issues make Storm 4's issues look pedestrian, like, they dwarf in comparison. Like, dash cuts may have been a hindrance, but they ain't got shit on the issues this game is afflicted with, like, all these broken jutsus and all. I mean, okay, admittedly, dash cuts were hell, but armors and all these broken jutsus are basically tantamount to dash cuts in terms of breaking the game. Now, sure, you could argue that, Storm 4 at launch was in a very bad state as well, but it doesn't even come close to this, not by a long shot. Like, some people are saying, the game is liable to change, but it's been over 3 months. Like, if you really think that they'll do anything, I think you're sorely mistaken. But if you really think about it, I think Storm 4 is more balanced by a landslide. In hindsight, Storm 4 only required a few minor adjustments. Like, you had characters like Neji, Yugito, Nagato, Storm 3 Kakashi that had insane hitboxes. This was supposed to be nerfed. And by the way, this is still the case in Storm Connections. These characters still have insane hitboxes, and that hasn't been nerfed at all. So we had that. We had characters like Tamari, who was really, really broken as a cover fire support. You had dash cuts, which completely kind of, they just give you an insane edge over everyone in the game. You had awakenings like Danzo, Six Paths Madara. You had, Six Paths Madara and Danzo were OP and base as well. You had characters like Rinnegan Sasuke, Minato. You had Tayuya. Obviously, Tayuya was insane with the Dokis. You have Kaguya with the Lava Dimension. You had some jutsus like Hashirama Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu, the last Naruto's clone Rasengan Jutsu. And you had characters like, Hashirama, like Sage Hashirama, who were very mash intensive. So you had a few characters, a few awakenings, and a few jutsus that needed to be fixed. And that was it. That was basically it. And this could have been done in under a month. In under a week. Like a single modder could have patched all of this. But they never did any of this. Instead, they released a game that now requires way more patching and balancing. In Storm 4, like I said, you had a few glitches, a few broken characters like the meta. In this game, everything is the meta. Everything is just so broken that trying to make sense of it is just a futile endeavor, honestly. In comparison, Storm 4 looks like a godsend. Like, do you realize how hard you gotta fuck up to make Storm 4 seem like a balanced game? Like, how do you drop the ball so hard? Like, I cannot believe we're living in a timeline where we have to hope for the new Storm game to be as nuanced as Storm 4. And like I said, this game needs like 500 patches to even hope to be up to par with Storm 4. Like, Storm 4 set the bar too high, bro. I can't believe it. Like, we were all complaining about Storm 4, and then Connections comes out, and we're like, no, I'm sorry. Like, please come back. Yeah, but they really need to go back to the drawing board and start from square one. And that square one is Storm 4. The only silver lining I see here is 60 FPS and the fact that they, at the very least, kept the same engine that they used in all the previous Storm games. But, you know. But anyway, I digress. Like I said, all the previous Storm games have had their own slew of incredibly aggravating issues that would basically, you know, like, disrupt the flow of the game to some degree. And this game is no exception. It's not exempt from that. But like I said, the sheer extent of these issues, the sheer amount, it's unprecedented. I'm genuinely flabbergasted at how they saw this and felt it was completely fine to just release the game in this abhorrent state. Like, how do you even endorse this? It's just so unfathomable to me. So there's a plethora of issues. The game has a lot of issues, the company making it has even more issues. But that being said, I don't think this game is completely unenjoyable or unplayable. If you play it with friends and, you know, you're sure these people play a certain way, I think it could work. But regarding all these issues, you can pin all of this, you can pin the blame only on CC2 and CC2 alone. I highly doubt Bandai had any say in the matter, because they're just a publisher. I mean, you know, they're, like, CC2 is affiliated with them, but they don't make these types of decisions. I'm pretty sure Bandai didn't tell them to add armors or make all these jutsus broken. I've seen some people defending CC2, saying, oh, no, it's Bandai's fault. Nah, it's CC2, bro. Like, Bandai has to approve some things, like some decisions, but trust me, this is all CC2's fault. This is a company that is so out of touch with its players that it's basically become notorious for not even being remotely capable of listening to what we want, to what we've been asking for almost a decade. Like, I seriously cannot overstate how long this whole thing has been going on for. Like, we implore them to fix something, to add characters, we make petitions, and all we're met with is radio silence. And everything we say falls on deaf ears because they're literally tone deaf. And it's all to no avail. But will they fix things eventually? That's the million-dollar question here. Now, personally, I reckon they won't do anything because they simply couldn't care less about this game. Like, I just don't think it's in the cards. Now, need I remind you that we have not had a Storm game in nearly 8 years. 10 new playable characters after 8 years is simply uncalled for. But, you know, you could make the argument that, you know, they are a company after all. If they give us everything we want all at once in this one game, there will be nothing left to give for the next Storm game, provided it ever happens. Now, CC2 always say how they're huge Naruto fans, and when you look at some of their games, the love they put into certain movesets and ultimates, sure, you could say, yeah, that's true. But lately, I've seriously been starting to question that whole assertion, because I feel like they're really tired of Storm, and that can definitely be seen in their games. Like, it's like their games in general have been getting sloppier and sloppier, and it's like they've been getting incrementally less and less support. And all of the issues the game is currently fraught with are basically a testament to CC2's laziness. Like, it's all laid out on full display. And it doesn't feel like a labor of love, you know? It feels like a half-assed group project done at the last minute, you know? And there's a huge discrepancy between what they say and what they do, because, you know, you say that you love Storm, so much so, in fact, that you won't let any other developer touch your engine for any game that isn't Naruto. That's what Matsuyama said in some interview. Yet you abandoned Storm 4, released only 4 DLC characters, and basically another expansion pack which was completely recycled, left the community to its own devices, and skedaddled. But you love the game. Like, see what I mean? Like, their words are completely at odds with their actions. It was, I was actually under the impression that Hinakami Chronicles, the Demon Slayer game, got more love than Storm, which is purportedly their most beloved franchise. So, like I said, it's painstakingly obvious that CC2 isn't a very industrious company. I feel like they don't really work that hard to make playing their games worthwhile. You know what I mean? So, like I said, 8 years with no new Storm game, 0 marketing, horrible trailers, no online at launch, 10 new playable characters, and no support in sight. No feedback, nothing. What can you extrapolate from all this? Like, can you seriously look me in the eye and tell me, yes, I do believe CC2 will now accommodate all our requests. They will set the record straight once and for all, silence all the doubters, and usher in a new era of good gameplay. It's never gonna happen, bro. It is never going to happen because they don't care. The fact of the matter is, the success of this game and this franchise is contingent only on CyberConnect 2. Like, it all hinges on their efforts and their decisions. But we know they won't do anything. We can hope, but hoping won't do us any good. Our hopes will never come to fruition because it's just prolonging the agony. And knowing them, it's likely that they might actually exacerbate the state of the game somehow. Never put it past them. Nothing is off the table with CC2. This game has made that abundantly clear. But even though everything we do is probably in vain, for the time being we can only wait and hope that CC2 will take notice of some of our requests, and that they will factor in certain things, and that these DLCs, these new DLCs, will bring some updates with them that will ameliorate the state of the game by some margin at least. Like, at the very least, I'm hoping for some of the most prominent issues to be alleviated. Like, as far as I'm concerned, armors, counters, broken jutsus, these things take precedence, and I really don't want them to focus on some frivolous stuff like buffing Suigetsu or speeding up Zabuza's combos, which, by the way, is one of the things they did in a Storm 4 update. They sped up Suigetsu's combos. They've always had their priorities backwards. It's kind of insane. Now, I know that I rant a lot, but don't get it twisted. I want this game to be fixed as much as the next guy. Probably more, actually. And I know this might be a tough pill to swallow, but like I said, I'd wager they won't do anything, and because they simply don't care. So they won't fix any of these issues. Maybe a few negligible, minuscule changes to characters that no one uses here and there, but given their track record, yeah. Alright, so you know how I mentioned how the skill ceiling in this game is basically non-existent, and how you can lose to anyone despite your skill level and all that? Well, let me tell you a little story, since this video is already shaping up to be like 10 hours long. So, during the apex of my boredom, I decided to tune into one of those, there's like this tournament, this Storm Connections tournament hosted by Flying Kunai, and I saw a few matches, and I saw something I could not believe. Now, we got to go back in time to give you the full context. So, it was 2019, and my friend, who was one of the best advanced players in the game, was playing Storm 4 on PC, because I guess he was also very bored, so. And he fought this Spanish or Portuguese guy, who I'm not going to be naming. And this guy, he had like a 6 to 7 second delay. It was god-awful. And of course, he was a complete trash zoner, but somehow my friend managed to lose the first round because the delay was just so insufferable. Like, I can't, like, you really don't, like, you can't sympathize with this because, like, until you've played against a red bar, you can't know just how horrendous it is playing against these people. So what ended up happening was this guy, like, even though my friend lost the round, this guy rage quit, and then he took a screenshot of his own rage quit and uploaded the screenshot to his Hall of Shame on Steam to make it seem as though my friend was the one who rage quit after losing the first round. Because, people would see that and go, why would you rage quit when you won the first round? But they only see disconnected, blah, 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 and they think that, my friend was the one who rage quit after losing the first round. So he basically tried to, quote-unquote, expose my friend. And then I saw this guy's Steam account, and it's just something else, man. Like, this man played both the original and pirated version of Storm, and in both of these games he had over 3,000 hours. Now, I'm pretty sure he was just, AFK. Like, he was just, like, Storm was constantly running in the background, and I guess he never turns his PC off or something. And also, he has over 860 screenshots on both the pirated and the original version of the game, and all of the screenshots are basically screenshots of his wins. And some, with every screenshot has this insanely offensive, edgy comment like, "This is my power, you worm. Rot in hell. You shall despair for eternity." So this guy's basically obsessed. He's some kind of edgelord. I don't know. Now, I fought this guy in an attempt to, like, avenge my friend, and the delay was just so goddamn awful. I can't even delineate how bad it was. So, I took Yugito and Storm 3 Kakashi because I knew I was going to be facing, 10 seconds of input lag, and I didn't want to take my chances since, these guys have a good hitbox, and I felt like that would be kind of helpful. And it was. I beat the guy, and I remember uploading the video back in 2019, but it was an unlisted video. It wasn't public because, I don't really pride myself on beating this guy. He was trash, and the delay was so awful that I couldn't even take it seriously. Like, I can't emphasize just how bad this guy was. And you know what? There's also another dude, also Spanish, and he also has like 6,000 hours in Storm with over 900 screenshots, and every single screenshot is just, him winning, and it's some comment like, "I am the best player of Naruto Shippuden ever. Come and face me if you dare." And yeah, but whatever. I don't know. Like, this is like this, like Storm 4 GOAT type beat. Like, really weird stuff. But anyway. So I beat this guy, and he didn't take a screenshot of my win, obviously. Instead, he took a screenshot of the lobby and my ninja info card, and he put me in his Hall of Shame regardless, and captioned the screenshot, "The only reason you won was because I couldn't stop dying of laughter because of your Switch spam." In Spanish, of course. So, this guy's nickname has kind of, become a local meme between me and my friends, and, for years we keep talking about this guy, and, from time to time we bring him up, and, and there's also another troglodyte who would play you and then lose, and then he'd say, "The only reason I lost is because you're too bad, and I'm too good, and, I'm too used to playing advanced professional players, so I'm not used to these cheap tactics." Like, bro, imagine saying the only reason I lost is because you're too bad. Like, what? But whatever, But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. So the bottom line is, I seriously harbor nothing but disdain for these types of people, and Storm seems to be chock full of them, unfortunately. So imagine my absolute dismay and consternation when I watch this tournament hosted by Flying Kunai, and I see this guy in the tournament going toe-to-toe against Boroshiki44, one of the best advanced players in Storm 4, and he actually managed to win a round. I was taken aback. I was downright flabbergasted. It was one of the most disconcerting things I'd seen in a while. The fact that this game let some garden variety spammer play on equal footing, or, well, not equal footing, but, I can't believe he actually managed to win a round against an advanced player like that. It's just unfathomable to me. In Storm 4, this guy couldn't hope. Like, he couldn't hope to measure up to anyone. He got humbled by me. And I'm mid. Like, oh my god. Like, in Storm 4, this would never be the case. Meanwhile, in Connections, this guy can face off against pros. Amazing game design, bro. Man, this game, it's an affront to God, bro. It's an affront to anyone who actually has skill. And I think that this match, the match with this guy, it really brought that to light. I mean, Sure, you could argue that it's been 5 years and maybe this guy spent a lot of time in the hyperbolic time chamber or something, but I highly doubt that. This guy was not playing well. I think one of the things that definitely makes Connection seem way more brain dead compared to Storm 4 is the lack of switching. I said this before and I'll say it again, but even before the game dropped, I would watch all these matches of advanced players fighting, and I felt like it was kind of dull.
I would see all these gameplay videos of these advanced players like Mr. E, Poison Kami, Geza, Yukino, Rikudo, all these players, and I was like, alright, this is good, obviously, it's enjoyable, it looks fun, but there's something missing, some kind of, tension. It doesn't feel like the matches don't feel intense enough. And then I saw my friend streaming the game against his, friends and, some other advanced players, and I'm like, I still feel that way. I still feel like there is no tension and everything feels so streamlined, so brain dead, and so random.
And initially I couldn't exactly put my finger on what it was precisely that made the game seem a lot more random, but it dawned on me very shortly that everyone was spamming supports, everybody was just spamming jutsus instead of switching. Because, switching in this game is simply not as viable as it was in Storm 4. Not only do jutsu buffers and switch dashes cost chakra now, but you can't switch to your character unless the support gauge is full, so it's ultimately not worth it. Now, in Storm 4, switching was like a crucial component of the game, and you can switch to your character as soon as the support gauge is half full. So you don't gotta wait for the, it doesn't have to be full. Like, the moment it's half full, you can switch. And in this game, that's simply not possible, and sometimes you gotta wait a long-ass time. And on top of that, all of these jutsus are just incredibly broken. So why on earth would you switch when you can simply just press a button and call Ashura or Pain or any character with an armored jutsu, and they'll save your bacon easily? Like, your opponent could be in the midst of doing a combo, but if you just press one button, it's GG. And like I said, switch tech was really instrumental when it came to countering certain things in Storm 4. Like, you could easily outmaneuver someone with, all this switch tech, and it was kind of like the cornerstone of every advanced Storm player's playstyle, and it gave the game a lot more depth. Now, of course, you could argue that it was a glitch, that it was unintentional, but the profound impact it had on the game basically was what kept it alive for almost a decade. Now, another thing that really needs to be brought up is how useless two-man teams are in this game. It's basically a detriment, and a major one at that. Now, God forbid you only have one support in this game. In Storm 4, if you only use one support instead of two, your support will come back faster. It's like a compensation for having one less support. But for whatever godforsaken reason, in this game, that's not the case. So even if you only have one support, it'll take the same amount of time for that one support to come back as it would if you had two supports. So why the fuck would anyone use one support? It's literally a handicap. It's a literal handicap in this game. It's a liability. Now, I know this is rich coming from me, because if you check out my videos, you'll easily see that, I always use one support, but that's for a different reason. It's because I find it cleaner that way. With two supports, this game kind of becomes a clusterfuck, and I get kind of confused at times, especially in this game, and these armors are seriously just a lot to handle. So the only way for me to even remotely enjoy this game is to play it with one support, even though it's ultimately a handicap.
And it ended up being just as I said. I said how it would be incredibly just absurd and hilarious if this game came out and people were people were still playing, like, I don't know, Storm 2 characters that came out in 2010. Like Minato, Kiba, Neji, and all that, Pain. And that is exactly what happened. If anything, these characters are even more viable now than they ever have been. So you'll see Pain, Kiba, even Hanzo. You'll see PTS Shino, a character that came out in 2008. 16 years later, this character is now meta. But What the fuck just happened, man? At this point, and you know, the best part about all this is they still haven't updated any of these characters, and they never will. We never got Jugo's Curse Mark Level 2 Awakening. We never got a new ultimate for him. When you look at all these old characters, they still have the exact same movesets. But I don't want to repeat myself, you know, ad nauseum, because that's what I did in my previous video. I talked at length about how these characters have not been updated in over a decade and a half. Storm 2 came out in 2010, and the movesets are, like, still the same 14 years later. Like, you know, at least at the... Alright, you can make the argument, you know, Hidan didn't show anything new. You know, you can't really give him a lot of stuff, but Itachi, Jiraiya, Tsunade, Orochimaru, Pain, Kakuzu even... Bro, these characters need an update, or at least a new ultimate. You know, at least give them a new ultimate and a new cinematic finisher for their neutral and down combo. I think even that would suffice. But no, just give them a new tilt and call it a second jutsu. And it's not even a new tilt. Like I said, most of these characters, they have the same exact tilt, except now it's called a second jutsu. So yeah, it's hilarious. Like, are you gonna call this a jutsu? Really? Karin just hitting you like this? That's a jutsu? No, that's her tilt. Except now you've got to press different buttons to use it, and it deals jutsu damage, and it takes chakra. That's the only difference here. This is not an updated character. This is a sorry excuse for a game. Everything was done for two reasons. For the sake of novelty, because, you know, it's their game plan. You gotta add as many new mechanics as possible, or remove as many old mechanics as possible, or change as many, well, mechanics as possible. Because that would give people the impression that this game is actually new, that they had balance in mind, and that they were making an active effort to improve the game. Even though 90% of these changes are completely redundant, nobody asked for this. Some of them were okay, like, you know, the fact that awakenings are shorter now, the fact that dash cuts are nerfed, storm gauge, all that. But then you see all these new things, and it just breaks the game even further. So it's like, you just did this to make it, you know, to try and make the $60 price tag more justified. Like, it's not an old game, it's not the same game. Look at it, it's not just 10 new playable characters, we did a mechanical overhaul. But no, you did a huge downgrade, and this should really have been a DLC. I said in my previous video how every Storm game, you know, either every single Storm game is a new game, or every single Storm game is a DLC for Storm 1, and I still stand by that. And granted, this game has some really radical changes, but these changes are a downgrade and are completely unnecessary.
Now, I'm sure you're all aware of the fact that there's a stigma against arena fighting games, especially among 2D fighting game players. Like, these 2D fighting game enthusiasts, like, they always act all condescending towards anyone who plays arena fighting games, and especially Storm, for some reason. Like, I remember, like, they would heavily downplay the game's skill ceiling, they would lump it in with all those cookie-cutter arena fighters that are actually horrible, and I remember, like, I used to call these people out on their BS. You know, I'd fight them tooth and nail over Storm, because most of the time, the people who were bashing Storm 4, they had little to no experience with the series, and they just brushed it off as casual, no-brain mashing and stuff like that, you know? And they would constantly talk about, you know, how Storm 4 requires zero skill. And, you know, I think that's a blatant fallacy. There's like, so much more to Storm 4 than meets the eye, but a lot of people fail to see that. And at least when it came to Storm 4 requiring zero skill, I still stand by the fact that, you know, Storm 4 is a phenomenal game, and I feel like it actually requires quite a lot of skill. But with this game, you know, all of these people who repudiate arena fighting games and refuse to acknowledge Storm as a good game, well, this game gives them a very good reason to reestablish that belief in case they were about to change their minds, you know? At least before, you could make the argument that, you know, Storm 4 deviates from your run-of-the-mill arena fighter. But that simply does not apply to this game. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, Connections is like Jump Force or One Punch Man. I'm just saying that it's a lot closer to those games than Storm 4 was. And I think that kind of speaks volumes. So there was this interview with CC2. I don't know if it was like some Indonesian game journalist or I don't know, but quite a lot of people covered it. It's definitely legit. So there was this interview with CC2 where they asked basically who this game is tailored to, and they said something to the effect of, "We're aware of the competitive scene, but we just don't care." Like something along those lines. Like they don't care about the professional players at all, even though these are people who have dedicated their lives to this game, and who are literally the only people who have kept Storm 4 alive for years. But whatever, you know. Now, I don't want to misconstrue any of their claims, but I think it's pretty clear what they're insinuating. Well, they're not even insinuating, they're not even implying anything, they're literally explicitly, overtly stating that they are not catering to competitive players. Now, let me reiterate, they said, we are focusing on new players, not the competitive aspect of the game. They essentially said, we don't care about you. And in doing so, they're actively trying to ostracize the most loyal part of their community. The part of their community that has kept the game afloat in their stead for years. Like, there's no other way to interpret this. If you have some other way of interpreting this, then knock yourself out. But, yeah, oh my god, man, I don't know. But, there's kind of there's this discrepancy. Like, they said they don't care about competitive play, and they don't want to indulge advanced players. Alright. But it's crystal clear that they did make some positive changes that are, beneficial to the overall balance of the game. Like nerfing dash cuts, awakening times, armor break frames, and all that. It's just that the negative changes just preponderate very heavily over the positive ones. What gives? So you don't care about, I don't know, man. I used to think they were, never the wiser, that they were blissfully unaware of the inexplicable issues plaguing this game, but apparently that's not the case. So it doesn't add up. What gives? Now, I don't know what to make of this. I think this just kind of proves that they're not completely oblivious to the status quo. Now, I'm not saying they're acutely aware of everything that's going on, but these decisions and changes are definitely deliberate. Like, they definitely nerfed dash cuts on purpose by nerfing the storm gauge and all that. So they were aware of these issues, and they tried to balance the game, yet they don't care about the advanced community. I just don't get it. Now, I feel like the ones who really feel the adverse impact of these changes the most and can see just how detrimental they are the advanced players. Like, if you're proficient, if you're well-versed in using Switch tech, I feel like you're more likely to find all these numerous issues the game is burdened with a lot more debilitating, because you're simply not used to stuff like that. For example, my friend, who's an advanced player, at some point he uninstalled the game, and he thinks the game is trash, because all of his experience is basically for naught, and it's more than he's willing to deal with. And honestly, it's really taken a toll on him because he loves the series so much. And when you're a diehard fan of the series, and you've invested so many hours into it, it becomes increasingly more difficult to simply remain unfazed by all this jank. Now, I'm inclined to wholeheartedly agree with my friend. The fact that all his skills and experience that he's been honing for years have been rendered completely pointless by some game where you can get defeated by a random casual spamming jutsus, that is definitely just sad. It's lamentable. Now, he did say my friend did say at some point how, it's kind of hard to distinguish between how Storm is undiscernible from games like Demon Slayer. And I personally feel like that's kind of a stretch, but, there might be a kernel of truth to it, because, when you look at this game, I just feel like it's an offline experience. Does that make any sense? Like, I feel like it's a single-player game where online was just an afterthought. Now, don't get me wrong, my friend is still one of the most formidable players in the game, but it's just that this game is a significant downgrade, and he's not very happy with having to adjust to something that requires a lot less skill and is a lot more random. Like, everything in this game just feels kind of arbitrary. Like, it makes no sense. But the point I'm trying to make is that this transition from Storm 4 to Connections is very difficult to adjust to, especially for advanced players. Now I want to talk about just how incredibly sloppy this game is. And this was the case with Storm 4 as well, but in this game it's somehow even worse. Now, I mentioned in one of my previous videos how Boruto-era Kakashi doesn't have Purple Lightning. He still has Raikiri, which he simply shouldn't have, because he lost access to it because he no longer has the Sharingan. But, you know, it doesn't even matter, bro, because he can use the perfect Susanoo without the Sharingan. Like, it just completely it doesn't matter, bro. Just who cares? Who needs Purple Lightning, bro? Just give him his 2014 moveset. You don't need to make a new moveset for him. You don't even need to make these just completely... I don't know, man. I don't know. They just didn't care. Like, that much is obvious. But there are other things as well. Darui, like Kage Darui, like Boruto-era Darui, still says, the boss doesn't keep me around for laughs when he wins. Like, bro, what are you talking about? What are you yapping about, bro? You're the boss now. Like, oh my, no, this is a textbook example of CC2 sloppiness. And, you know, for characters like Rinnegan Sasuke, pre-ordered Boruto, Sarada, a bunch of these characters, they still have their CGI 3D cut-ins as their UJ finishers. You know what I mean? Like when you do an ultimate jutsu finisher and you get this like anime screenshot. Yeah, well, these characters like Rinnegan Sasuke and all that, they still have their Storm Force story mode screenshots. Because, you know, back then the anime hadn't reached that point. But now, you know, they could have simply used any picture from the anime, you know, from the war arc. Like, why not use this picture of Sasuke, bro, for Rinnegan Sasuke Ultimate Jutsu Finisher? It's so amazing. Why not? I just don't understand what this line of thinking is, man. I just don't get it. But anyway, the sound in this game is also ass. If you look at Koji's Awakening, Baryon Mode Naruto's Awakening, none of these have SFX. They're just voice lines. Just look at this. But this is an ongoing thing with them. Like, even back in Storm 3, if you use Mifune or Storm 3 MS Sasuke, like, you could hear how when they're done using the sword goes back in its scabbard, and you can hear the clicking sound. And this was simply no longer the case in Storm 4. And they also removed the Sharingan sound from Storm 3 MS Sasuke Flame Control Sword Ultimate.
These eyes see darkness clearly.
In Storm 3, in Storm 3, Heavy Sasuke swings his sword during the victory animation. Like, you can hear the sound. But in Storm 4, that's not the case. And Connections too, by extension. And they also replaced a bunch of these sounds from, old Ultimates with this sound, and it just sounds so goofy. One example of this is like Sage Mode Naruto, like his Rasen Shuriken. But, you know, you can see it with Rinnegan Sasuke, Six Paths Naruto. Even Sakura, man, like, this isn't even an explosion. Why are you making that sound? Even Zetsu Obito, like, he impales you with these trees, and you hear this sound, like... Like, why is this sound coming out? The sound is completely incongruous with what's happening on screen.
Feels good.
That should...
But yeah, I think this just serves to further underscore just how lazy they are when it comes to Storm in general. Also, I want to talk about just how limited practice mode is. Like, back in Storm 4, you could select what actions the CPU could perform. You can make it so that they can only do jutsus or grabs or tilts or whatever. But in this game, it's just sub, guard, and, I don't know, some really basic stuff. You can't really make it so that the CPU uses only a jutsu and nothing but the jutsu, you know? You can't make it so that they can't switch. And this is kind of annoying because sometimes I want to demonstrate the effect that certain jutsus have, and I can't do it because the CPU keeps doing something else, because I can't program it to do what I want it to do. And that's just so incredibly vexing.
Another thing that makes absolutely zero sense is how they made the character slots. First of all, the character select screen has never been worse. I'm an avid defender of Storm 3's character select screen. I think it had the best looking roster. I just love having all characters in one place. It really makes it feel like there are a lot of characters. Now, there's always been something that's been bugging me. For example, Edo Itachi was a separate character, even though he was just a costume. Like, the only difference is he has, you know, like a different jutsu and an ultimate, and even now you can, like, change that. But in Storm Connections, they go the extra mile, they go a step further, and they actually make it even worse, to the point where you got like 3 to 4 separate Kakashi slots, even though you only have 2 different movesets for Kakashi. You got Storm 2 Kakashi, or well, Storm 3 Kakashi, and Storm Revolution Kakashi. So it's like, why would you do this? It's this, like, all these characters, like, you got 2 Hanabis. Hanabi is only one character, right? And she has one costume, but they made her costume a separate slot. And also the Konoha 11, you got the Shippuden versions, and they're the first on the first page, and then you got the Boruto versions, which are exactly the same, but they're just different costumes, but they're counting them as separate characters, which makes absolutely no sense. In my opinion, every character should be on this, like, if you have, like, let's say, Sasuke, right? Just put every Sasuke, either put every different, like, you gotta make your mind up. Either put every single variation of a character on a different slot, so let's say, PTS Sasuke, Hebi Sasuke, Taka Sasuke, Kage Summit Sasuke, EMS Sasuke, Rinnegan Sasuke, The Last Sasuke, Road to Boruto Sasuke, and supporting Kage Sasuke. Like, put all of these Sasukes on different slots, one next to the other, or put them all under one slot, alright? I don't see what the problem is here. Or you could actually put, you might want to separate PTS, right? Because Storm has always had a separate page for PTS characters, so maybe don't include PTS Sasuke in that slot. But, now the roster is just completely disorganized. You got, like, slots missing, but then they appear on the next page. Like, it's just such an eyesore. It's so unsightly just seeing this. It makes no sense, and I think the reason they did this was so that it would appear as though the game has a lot more characters than it actually does. And the way they accomplished that was through basically, making all of these, like, different slots for same characters. And, yeah, I think that's their game plan. They also removed the ability to select jutsus. This is the typical 1 step forward, 2 steps back, or in this case, 1 step forward, 5 billion steps back. The practice that CC2 always, is just basically notorious for. Like, why would you remove options? Even in Storm 1, you could even select your support's jutsu, like what jutsu your support could use. In Storm 4, that wasn't possible, but, you could at least choose your main character's jutsu. You know, the character you select first in your team, you can select their jutsu. Sasuke had like 10 different jutsus to pick from. Now you have no choice. You're stuck with the default jutsu, and that's it. You can't change it. I don't understand why you would do this. It is such a horrible, horrible thing. Senju in Japan said how this game is a grower, not a shower. You know, how it will get support, it will get all this stuff, DLC content. But like I said, it's just, even if this game was perfect at launch, like, even if it released perfect, I still think that the marketing left this unwashable stain on it, on the game's reputation, and now people just hate it, like, by default. So CC2 didn't really have to do anything for this game to be hated, but they really went the extra mile to make sure that this game was irreparable, unsalvageable. It's absolutely hilarious to me, in the most depraved sense, how Senju in Japan, and by the way, I'm not bashing Senju, he was right about 99% of the things he said. The leaks, Toneri, I mean, I knew that Toneri was going to be story mode only, I completely expected that, so he wasn't wrong about any of that. Mers, Nanashi, the new characters, the DLC characters, he was spot on. However, here's the thing. He said how this was going to be the most competitive Storm game. And those are, you know, like the famous last words. Oh my god, man. That quote is so memeable.
Senju also said how this game was originally going to have free roam, and how it was ostensibly going to have clan battles and insane customization. But then they scrapped all of that, and that kind of begs the question, why? Like, did they fail to meet deadlines? I mean, it certainly wouldn't be the first time, because, you know, I'm not sure how right this is, but if I recall correctly, Square Enix actually hired CC2 to work on Final Fantasy VII, and they were taking so long, and they eventually started going with their own vision of the game, so Square Enix basically fired them. So maybe this was the same? You know, I find it really funny how all those people who are hyping up connections are just, like, gone. Like, they're out of commission. Like, I guess they've outlived their usefulness now that, you know, the game's actually out and it's a complete disappointment. But, you know, there was this one YouTuber who I didn't call him out in my last video, but, you know, I didn't name them. I didn't name this guy because I don't want to incriminate anyone. But he's still around. He's still organizing tournaments and stuff like that, and, you know, I said how I was kind of annoyed at how this guy built his career on basically just hating Storm and complaining about its issues, and, you know, I said how he was clearly a casual player with not a lot of skill, but this guy, he frames himself in a way that makes him come off as an expert to casuals. You know, he speaks very matter-of-factly and all that, even though he knows fuck all about the game. And what annoys me is that this guy speaks on behalf of the whole community, so Bandai automatically, like, they assume that his wishes are everyone's wishes, even though he's beyond unqualified to talk about the game in any capacity, so... And, you know, you got so many people, and mind you, these are people who don't seem to know an awful lot about this game, and are relatively new to the series as a whole. And you got people like this making guides, creating these combos, and talking about ways to improve, and it just makes me cringe, bro, because who in their right mind would want to improve in a game like this? Like, in its current state. It's kind of... I don't know, man. It's a pointless endeavor in my eyes. But whatever, I don't want to throw shade at anyone but CC2 right now. So like I said, they try to appeal to a wider demographic, and as a result, they made the game simpler. And this is not the first time a game has been streamlined in favor of newcomers. Like, this is not my first time seeing a game that is more basic compared to its previous iteration, you know? But you can make a game more accessible without completely breaking it.
I can make the analogy
I could bring up DMC, because I usually talk about DMC. When I talk about Storm, I bring up DMC. And when I talk about DMC, I bring up Storm. It's pretty funny, honestly, how my life revolves around these two things, apparently.
Now, I know this isn't exactly a fair comparison because, you know, DMC isn't a fighting game. It's a single-player game, but hear me out.
You know, it's kind of funny how people, a lot of advanced players, refuse to play DMC5, or they didn't find it all that exciting, and they went back to DMC4, because apparently DMC5's mechanics were really streamlined and simplified compared to DMC4. Now, personally, as someone who didn't even technically play DMC4, this was a complete win for me. Like, you had 3 characters, well, 4 if you count Vergil, or well, V. And, you know, you had a lot of content. Obviously, I still stand by the fact that DMC has the best weapons. DMC5 has the best weapons for Dante and Vergil. All these new moves, new content. I still think it's the best DMC game in general. But you have people who, like advanced players, who say that DMC4's gameplay was better because it allowed for more movement and more freedom of movement, like inertia and reversals. And apparently there are mods for that, for DMC5, but it never really truly conveys the same feeling as DMC4. Thing is, DMC4 took a while to learn. It was a really hard game to, you know, master, especially Dante. It wasn't nearly as accessible as DMC5. DMC5 is easy to pick up, but kind of hard to master. A Royal Guard in DMC4 was so incredibly difficult. Like, your health would get wasted, but in DMC5 it's a lot more lenient. For example, your DT gets wasted, and it's a lot less strict. You have a lot more frames where you're allowed to, you know, like, make mistakes, so it is not nearly as strict. But in DMC4 it was really strict, so it's like you're gatekeeping the mechanic, you know what I mean? Like, it's not for everyone, and as a result, people don't really bother to learn Royal Guard in DMC4, but in DMC5, it's accessible, so people learn it, you know? It's the same with Enemy Step. Enemy Step in DMC5 is a lot easier to do than in DMC4. And because it's so much easier, a lot of people find it more accessible, and they do it. But DMC4 advanced players are kind of mad that they took so much time to learn this mechanic, and now anyone can do it. But you know what? In Storm, this isn't the problem. It's not that these things are now easy to do and anyone can do them. It's that it's gone. Switch tech, I mean, it's not technically gone, but it's simply not worth doing. And there are so many things that it's not like people here in the Storm community are like, oh, now everyone's equal. No, it's not about that. It's about the fact that the game is so simplified now to the point where it's all about spamming jutsus and resorting to brain-dead tactics that anyone can use. Like, someone with no game experience can beat you now just by mashing. You know, that's the problem. It's not the problem that the game is now more accessible. No, I don't think anyone's complaining about the fact that it's easier to do infinite combos now. They're complaining about this other stuff. And besides, DMC is a single-player game. This is a competitive online game. And it's just a completely different story.
So DMC5 was streamlined from DMC4, and some pros didn't like this change, but be that as it may, DMC5 had the content to justify this streamlining of the mechanics, whereas Connections simply doesn't.
So Hiroshi Matsuyama, the CEO of CC2 and the creator of Storm, basically, has been going around Twitter liking random posts pertaining to bugs and glitches in this game. Now, I found this hilarious because in one post by Star Zero Tachi, you know, he basically posts what happens. He basically records what happens when you draw, you know, on ranked, and it's a glitch. And he says, bro, this game sucks, and Matsuyama liked the post. Like, yeah, bro, hell yeah, it does suck. And I'm pretty sure he's doing this. Maybe he's trying to, like, write down all the glitches, the most prominent glitches. But here's the thing. These glitches aren't the problem. Oh, they are a problem, but they're not the main problem. The main problem is it's the intentional mistakes they made. like the intentional moves, you know, like armor on jutsus and pill boosts and all.
I want to usher in a new topic now. I want to dedicate this section of the video to the Storm community, but believe it or not, I'm not going to be bashing the community. Instead, I'm going to be praising their exuberant dedication. So, before Storm Connections actually dropped, modders were working with advanced players to, like, you know, replicate all the changes from Storm Connection gameplay videos, and they modded these changes into Storm 4. And in doing so, they created a mod called Road to Connections, which was basically Storm 4, but it had all of the most significant mechanical changes from Storm Connections. And they did this in no time, bro. Like, mere weeks after the first gameplay footage dropped. And would you believe me if I told you that to a lot of people, this mod, created under a few months, was actually more balanced than the game itself? I remember people seeing the crumble animation and the new counter, and literally in under a day, I saw them replicate these mechanics in Storm 4. And if modders can do these things this fast, what exactly is CC2's excuse? What exactly is stopping them from patching everything in under a week? It doesn't even remotely make sense. There's just no way to get to the bottom of this. Like, some skullduggery, some black magic is afoot here, bro. Like, I don't understand why they would be so reluctant to fix things that modders can fix in mere weeks. Now, I'm not saying in this case that modders fixed anything. I'm just saying they modded mechanical changes into the game before the game even came out. You know what I mean? Like, this actually sounds like an even more difficult undertaking. I just don't get it, man. Oh, and there was also another project called Storm 4 Evo, which is like Storm 4 with some balance patches, you know, all made by modders. And, you know, at this point, our safest bet, our best bet would be Storm Connections Evo or something. But the only problem with that is you can only play this on PC and only with people who also have this mod installed. Because otherwise it wouldn't work, you know, it's incompatible with people who have the vanilla game. So here's some food for thought. If these modders can accomplish more in a few weeks than CC2 can in 10 years, why not simply hire these guys? Now, look, I know that sounds ridiculous. I know it sounds simple on paper and is actually not that easy and it's never going to happen, but why not at least communicate with your fan base, with the advanced players, like, why not sit down and just talk? Why can't they be like Ed Boon, for example, for Mortal Kombat? Like, he actually discusses this stuff on Twitter. And also, doesn't this mean that these changes are incredibly easy to make? Because like I said, if an individual modder can fix these issues in the span of a few weeks, I still don't get what's stopping CC2. Lest we forget, CC2 is a whole-ass company with presumably hundreds of employees who do this for a living. I don't understand, bro. Like, I know they have to go through Bandai and all, but seriously, why would Bandai object to any of this? They're just the publisher, bro. It doesn't make any sense, man. Now I want to talk about something that is so mortifying that it borders on disrespect. I was tempted to make this video, to release this video before the first DLC dropped. But you know what? In hindsight, I think it's a good thing I didn't. Because I wouldn't get to opine on what I'm about to opine on. So everyone had been waiting for the first DLC to drop so we could finally get custom lobbies, so we could finally invite our friends. And lest we forget, this game came out on the 17th of November 2023. And 2.5 months later, 2.5 months after the game's release, custom lobbies were still not a thing. Like, they work at a glacial pace, bro, but whatever. You could even argue that this was the main thing that drove most of the player base away. And then about a week before the first DLC was announced, something happens. And this is where you get to see CC2's insanity in full effect. So, some modders found that custom lobbies were always a thing. From the get-go, they were just disabled. Or rather, they were hidden. And this begs the question, why? Why would you shoot yourself in the foot like this? Like, this has got to be the most counterproductive thing they've ever done. I think. My friend actually tried the mod, and he said how it worked perfectly, except every time you want a rematch, the game locks itself to 30 FPS for some reason. So maybe that's why Custom Online wasn't available at launch. But you had more than 2.5 months! You're telling me you couldn't fix this issue in almost 3 months? You couldn't be bothered to fix this one issue? I find that very difficult to believe. I find it very hard to believe that this is something that would take that long to fix. This thing that would usually prompt most developers to delay their game. And you unabashedly release the game in this state? Wait, what's the big idea? What were you thinking? Like, delay this game that's clearly unfinished? Oh no, perish the thought. We'll release this half-baked game that can't even be played online, and then we'll fix online after the fact. 2.5 months later. Like, did you seriously expect your fanbase to condone this appalling decision? And this is just asking for trouble. Like, it goes without saying that people are gonna be pissed. It's like you wanted to incur your fans' wrath. Like, that's the only takeaway from all this. Like, just think about this rationally. I know that's impossible for CC2, but this is a game that is predominantly comprised of people who want to play it online with their friends. And you take away people's option to play the game online with their friends, and you don't fix it for more than 2.5 months after the game's launched. So obviously, it stands to reason that fans will not take kindly to this, and they will abandon your game as a result. And by extension, you also jeopardize your sales. The less copies you sell, the less money you make. You single-handedly killed your own... You didn't play a hand in killing your own game. You alone, you did this. Like, you killed your game. This is hands down the most nauseating, revolting behavior I've ever seen CC2 exhibit. If driving everyone away from your game was your goal, then this was a resounding success. But wait, I'm not done. So we got this custom lobbies mod for the game, and shortly thereafter, the first DLC dropped. So Hagoromo drops and we get this patch. So Custom Online is finally implemented more than 2 months post-release. Is it reasonable? Not really, but whatever, better late than never, I guess. And you would think that by this point, they would have fixed all of the major issues, right? But no dice. To nobody's surprise, this patch didn't mend a single issue. The patch notes say, we fixed some issues. We fixed some issues, but they don't specify what it is that they fixed. Like, all it said was, we added Hagoromo and this Team Ultimate and some costumes or whatever. So no fixes for armors, broken jutsus, counters, the fact that subs don't register. Like, none of these things that people have been so vocal about and have expressed their resentment towards, none of them have been fixed. But you know what? That's not the worst of it. What they did next even took me for a loop. Like, not only have they not fixed a single issue, but they doubled down in that custom lobbies don't work, or at least not properly. So 8-player lobbies don't seem to be functional. Even playing 5 to 6 players sometimes, it sometimes causes the game to crash. And to make matters worse, you cannot rematch. Or, well, you can, but you know how in casual matches you finish a match and you immediately press rematch and you rematch? Well, if you play in a custom lobby, when you finish a match, you will go back to the lobby, and then you will once again have to hit play, and then you have to look at the character, like, why encumber what should be an insanely simple process of just rematching? Are we seriously at the point where we don't even have simple rematches in 2024? Like, I will give credit where it's due. Like, they are masters at pushing everyone's buttons, bro. Like, this is so infuriating, man. Like, before this update, everybody was mad. But now they've got their pitchforks out. They're coming for you, CC2. This update, this DLC was the final nail in the coffin. My friend put the game up on eBay because it's hopeless. Actually playing this game in the hopes that it will be fixed eventually is just a fool's errand. Like, the game launched in a very precarious state, and it only seems to be progressively deteriorating to the point where I gotta wonder if this game is only gonna get worse with each update. It's been 3 months, we get custom online this late in the game, and it still doesn't work the way it's intended. I mean, I didn't expect the update to fix anything, to be honest with you, but this is more than what I bargained for, honestly. Like, this is just hitting below the belt, even by their standards. The reviews for Storm Connections on every platform are overwhelmingly negative. This game isn't even polarizing. Like, it's not even like you got people defending the game and people attacking. No, it's like unanimously frowned upon. The general consensus everywhere is that this game is unequivocally ass, and that's the reality of it. Like, it's not even divisive. Now, I'm glad I didn't make this video before the DLC dropped, like I said, because this way I would have had to cover that separately. And that goes against this whole, this will be my last Storm Connections commentary video thing that I said. You know, this game is so unbalanced that I'm starting to think that online was an afterthought. And I know I've already said this, but I just, you know, it's like they don't give a rat's ass about online. Like, leaving your game unpatched for more than 2 months after its release is just like a telltale sign that they just don't care. They give no fucks. And even when faced with this insane backlash, they haven't made any effort to, like, you know, placate the fan base or set the record straight. And I think that's one of the main problems with CC2 is that they're not amenable to any form of constructive criticism or feedback. They're not open to suggestions. Like, that's why they'll never accommodate any of our requests, no matter how much we implore them to. But like I said, you know, that's completely contradicted by the fact that they did make an active effort to nerf certain things from Storm 4, like, you know, May's water ball range and the tracking, dash cuts, the timer being frozen when there's a cutscene like a cinematic or a grab or an ultimate, nerfing awakening times. So you do take these things into account, but at the same time, you don't. Like, their actions are completely incongruous with one another. You know, like, it's just such an oxymoron that my brain can't take this. It's like they're doing this on purpose. If this is their idea of a troll, I'm not amused, bro. Like, this joke has definitely overstayed its welcome, and it's just becoming insanely vexing having to deal with this company and its BS for more than 10 years now. But anyway, you know, let's go back to the DLC now. Namely, the character we got, Hagoromo. So I'm going to be casting aspersions on this guy as well. Now, I know that a lot of people seem to love his moveset, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that he kind of sucks. Now, I said in my last video how I was afraid that he turned out to be like Jubito, Six Paths Madara, Ashura, Momoshiki, Indra, and once again, I hit the nail on the head. Like, bro, I never miss, bro. Like, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it, bro. This man's moveset is ass. It pains me to say it, but it is what it is. Turns out he's a recycled Jubito dollar store Momoshiki. And honestly, I figured as much. Like, he spams truth-seeking orbs and elements, and that's it. Like, he's quite literally recycled. If I didn't know any better, I'd say he was a mod. Like, if you showed me his moveset, like, bits of his moveset minus the cutscenes and cinematics, I would have been like, yeah, that's a nice mod. Like, and you know what? This wouldn't be the first time CC2 have done something like this. In Road to Boruto, the new Sasuke had the same almighty push tilt as the last Sasuke. He used the universal pull in his combos. His grab was a mixture of Rinnegan Sasuke's grab and the last Sasuke's down combo finisher. And Rinnegan Sasuke's grab is Heavy Sasuke's grab, and so is supporting Kage Sasuke's grab. Sarada has the same grab, and I can go on, bro. But look at Hagoromo's ninja moves. This is literally a copy-paste of Jubito's ninja moves, bro. Look at his down combo. This is literally Jubito's down combo, like this one hit. And this one hit, you know, like this one hit with the orbs extending and stuff, that's literally Jubito, like that's what he does. His up combo is literally just Momoshiki's up combo, like his awakening jutsu, like the Sword of Nunoboko, is like Jubito's awakening combo. His first jutsu is Momoshiki's air combo finisher. His second jutsu is a mixture of Jigen's jutsu and Darui's laser circus. It's just a reskin, kinda, only worse. And this other action is Yagura's second jutsu. See what I mean? Oh, and of course, he uses this random-ass rock mid-combo that is very akin to Momoshiki's combos. Like, you know, he uses this rock.
Also, the flame attack he uses mid-combo is very reminiscent of the flame attack that Momoshiki uses during his combo. And, oh, and of course, during Hagoromo's neutral combo, he does this lightning stream, you know, like, this streak of lightning. I don't know how I don't even know how to explain it, but this is identical to Momoshiki's Awakening Jutsu, Cry of Raijin. So it's literally the same thing, it's the same concept, it's just that Momoshiki's Jutsu is like more, it's like thicker in a way, and it obviously covers a lot more range. But, oh, and of course, Hagoromo's air combo finisher is literally Jubito's neutral combo, like the way this orb cracks. So yeah, man, this guy is like derivative garbage, bro. He's just like such a recycled character, man.
I don't know, man. I just have this, it could just be me, you know, like, I have this really big, like, aversion towards these characters that spam truth-seeking orbs, elements, and all that. Like, frankly, Jubito's moveset sucks. Six-Path's Madara is fine. I don't know, the way he uses the orbs is kind of, like, better. But Hagoromo, bro, this is the definition of a clusterfuck. And I said this before, and I'll say it again, but why did we get this guy exactly? Like, I know that he's the father of all shinobi, but matter of fact, Indra and Ashura were never on my wish list. Now, this isn't to say that I'm unhappy with them being in the game. For the record, I think we need as many characters as we can get. You know, the more the merrier. Especially since Indra has such a beautiful moveset, man. But this man is just haphazardly spamming random elements. It has no substance at all. I cannot for the life of me understand why we got this guy over someone like Toneri. Why couldn't we have gotten Anko, or Chojuro, or Kurotsuchi, or Adult Konohamaru, or Code, or any other more relevant character? I simply don't get it. I think this recycling is another dead giveaway that they just don't care about this game. But you know what? That's not all. That's not even the most important part. So, Hagoromo is kind of mid in terms of how OP he is. He's not OP at all. I was personally expecting him to be firing on all cylinders, to be insanely broken, but that's not the case. He sucks, his hitbox is pretty basic, but there is one thing that makes him incredibly broken. One thing that stands out. His jutsu. The Divine Lightning, which can be done both on the ground and in midair. This jutsu, bro, you were so close to making a comparatively balanced character, and then you give him this. Bro, at this point, I just dread to think about what the next update will bring. Like, there's no telling what hacks they'll give Ishiki or something. Like, nah. Just look at these statistics, man. This game is dead as a doornail. Like, how do you even resuscitate a game like this? How? Like, the game is in shambles, it's riddled with issues, the community is in dire straits, they're furious, no one's playing the game, it's flatlined. They royally fucked up. We are witnessing the repercussions of releasing an unfinished product way too early, and we have the honor of experiencing it firsthand. You know, this whole crisis could have easily been averted if they had simply delayed the game by 2 months. Unfortunately, a lot of games nowadays fall victim to this practice because, you know, the developers fail to meet deadlines, and I'm sure there are a lot of factors at play, but you know, when most companies do this kind of stuff, they see the backlash, they see the negative reviews, and they try to make amends. Not CC2, though. Like, bro, just take your time, delay the game if need be. Everything is preferable to this. And that last update, which we had been waiting for more than 2 months, like I said, was the final nail in the coffin. It just completely sealed the game's fate.
You know, when you take the aforementioned statistics into account, it really drives home just how bad the state of this game is, and not just the state of this game. You know, it may be true that Storm 4 has more players than Connections, you know, because Connections is just so bad, the launch was so horrendous, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, even though professional players prefer Storm 4, and even though I've seen a lot of them still, you know, they're still streaming Storm 4, the fact of the matter is, this game single-handedly killed both itself and Storm 4. Because people don't want to go back to Storm 4. I don't want to go back to Storm 4. It's the best Storm game. I don't think it will ever be topped. I think it can only go south from here. I don't know how, but like I said, I'm going to put stock in CC2's ability to make things worse, alright? If we ever even get Storm 5 or whatever. But the thing is, I just don't want to go back to Storm 4 because the 30 FPS is just, it looks cringe now. I've been playing this game for 8 years, like since February 2016. I am so tired of playing the same characters. And even if they port these characters via mod or something, it still wouldn't be it. So I'm forced to play this garbage out of sheer desperation, man. I can't believe it, but this game, in a way, killed the Storm series. I don't know how that's even possible, but you successfully, like, before Storm Connections came out, you had people, like, you had all of these advanced players basically doing FT10s, like first to 10, you know, organizing these tournaments. Like, on his channel, he kept hosting these tournaments. It was incredibly fun to watch. The community was alive. But after Connection came out, it kind of divided these professional players, but nobody, like, they only played Storm Connections for a very short period of time, a very short while, and then they went back to Storm 4, and then they just disappeared. Like, if you look at E's channel, he no longer hosts these Storm 4 tournaments. I think this game just got everyone depressed. It literally destroyed the Storm community, and it destroyed Storm as a series. And I just don't know how I feel. I mean, I know how I feel about that. It's so depressing that it just leaves such a horrible feeling in my stomach. But it is what it is, I guess. I don't know how many more of these it is what it is I've got of me, but, you know.
Anyway, I think it's about time to wrap this up. I sincerely apologize for not actually illustrating what's wrong with the game. I did show a few highlights, a few instances of armors, broken jutsus, but that doesn't do it justice. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Some things in this game warrant a 10-hour-long explanation, so it's nigh impossible to encapsulate all of the issues that this game is inundated with in one video. So what I've actually shown in that one segment and all the things that I've actually mentioned in this video, that's just scratching the surface. And honestly, I just want to end this video with my marbles intact, and, I'm a lazy bum, and even just making this rant took a lot out of me, and, every video that I make kind of, begrudgingly, and it's just the sad truth, honestly, but you know what, enough with the self-deprecating. So to recap, what are the pros and cons of Naruto Storm Connections? So, the pros are shorter awakenings, grab damage increased, all stages back, I guess, no guard break ultimates, support actions only usable if your storm gauge is at 100%, the storm gauge only lasting 15 seconds, the timer being paused during cutscenes, no more chip damage not killing you, no more armor break frames, health resets, which I guess is a good change, pickups and combo potential, and the fact that almost every character has infinite combos. Chakra regeneration, I know this is a slippery slope, and I'm willing to die on this hill, but I think it's a good change overall. So yeah, these, and the fact that you can do, jutsus frame 1, it kind of adds to the combo potential. So I think these are good changes overall. But as for the cons, like I said, jutsu armors, the fact that there are so many broken jutsus, like, even despite the armor, like, even if you don't count the armor, they're just broken. The speed pill being incredibly annoying, like, turning you into the Flash, like, acting as a mini awakening. The poison tag killing you, like, dealing insane, absurd amounts of damage. Infinite counters, counter and awakening. The fact that awakenings are not limited to, like, once per round or once per match. Resets, they should definitely be gone, because like I said, the whole concept of resets just runs counter to the whole concept of damage scaling, in that it renders it completely pointless, like I said numerous times throughout the video. And also, another thing that is really annoying is that you can only switch when your whole support gauge is full. So only when your support gauge is at 100% can you actually switch. And in Storm 4, that was not the case. You could switch when half of your support gauge was full. So I think these are the cons. Now, it may seem like they're, like, evenly matched, like there's an equilibrium, but that's really not the case, because the good things are not as good as the bad things are bad. And I think that's really kind of like the main problem here. Because, you know, we never really asked for a lot of these, like, changes in general, even the good ones. We mostly wanted, like, certain characters to be nerfed and certain jutsus and awakenings and dash cuts to be nerfed. And while, you know, nerfing the storm gauge kind of nerfed dash cuts by extension, I still think that, you know, they should have done more. Definitely. After 8 years, they definitely should have done more. So to recap, does this game reward toxic play as opposed to skill? Yes. In Storm 4, if you practice tech and learn all this stuff, your skill will definitely be brought to the forefront in matches. Like, the game will reward you for it. In this game, you're rewarded for spamming. So, that's it. Is the game worth the $60 price tag? Absolutely not. That's an exorbitant amount for this game, and yeah, let's just leave it at that. Is the game unplayable? No, it's not unplayable, by definition. Is it enjoyable? It can be, if played a certain way, but as it is in its current state, it's not nearly as enjoyable as Storm 4, and that's saying something. So, is the game ultimately not worth getting accustomed to? Well, if you're an advanced player, I'm inclined to say no, because it's an obvious downgrade, but if you want to play the game for the new content and, you know, this feeling of novelty, then, you know, sure, knock yourself out. So the final verdict, I'd say this game is a solid 5 out of 10, and I think that's mad generous, like I'm being real charitable here. The only reason I'm not giving it less than that is because I am still insane enough to count on them to fix at least some of the most glaring issues that are currently impinging on the game. Eventually, at some point. I know it's unlikely, but I am still hoping. That is just how desperate I am. Playing on PC is literal hell. Sometimes it's borderline unplayable. Like, I keep getting disconnected, desynced, random connection failures, game crashes, you can't exit the lobby, it's all around just inexcusable.
There have been so many instances of desyncs or some inexplicable problems transpiring seemingly out of nowhere. So I try to play my friend, and sometimes the game just soft locks, or, you know, it desyncs after like a few seconds, or, for example, another thing that would happen is the game would just go back, it would lock itself to 30 FPS.
Now, how does this game fare in comparison to other Storm games, and how does it scale to other arena fighting games in general? Well, so you're gonna think I'm a complete moron for saying this, but I think this game is probably the second or third best arena fighting game. And I think that just speaks volumes about the overall state of anime fighting games. You know, because the only games that come to mind are, like, Budokai Tenkaichi 3 and Demon Slayer. Like, and obviously Storm 4. Like, I don't know what other anime arena fighting game is better than Connections. Like, I just don't know. I'm trying to think, but I can't. You know, despite all that I've said, despite this colossal rant, I still think this game is second only to Storm 4, I think. Revolution is still worse, I think, because of all those instant awakenings, drive types, the insane counter. I would still say that was way more difficult to deal with. So this game is marginally better. But the armors, the insane jutsus, it's a very, very, very close second in terms of making the game less playable and less enjoyable. But if I had to choose between jutsu armors and the revolution counter, I'd say the armors are like the lesser evil, honestly. Like, but they're vying for worst Storm game. You know, Revolution and Storm 4. And again, let me reiterate, even if they somehow manage to fix every issue in this game, the next Storm game will introduce new changes that will break the game once again in different ways. So them supporting this game is a completely fruitless endeavor. It's ultimately futile. The only thing that could ever so slightly tip the scales in CC2's favor would be if they released a shit ton of new playable characters. And that's a big if. Like, I feel that a lot of people would be willing to look past their transgressions if they release more content. Like, I feel they would cut him some slack. Like, that's the only thing that could maybe compensate for the horrible state this game is in. But I don't see that happening for the foreseeable future, and I personally don't think they can wash off this indelible stain of this horrendous launch. So, yeah. Maybe they're just testing the waters with this game, but, you know, if that's true, if the reception alone is anything to go by, then they might as well just stop making games altogether, honestly. And that kind of makes me uneasy, because, you know, funnily enough, despite all that I've said, I still want them to keep making games. Like I said, I must be a glutton for punishment. Like, this is like an abusive relationship, like Stockholm Syndrome type shit. I still love Storm. I still love the game and all its concomitant problems and the suffering that comes with it, because CC2 are unparalleled at making movesets. Like, their character movesets are seriously second to none, and no one, and I mean literally no one, can give them a run for their money in that department. They're not like the guys that made the One Punch Man game or Jump Force. Like, most anime games are just derivative garbage, bro. Like, look at Jump Force. They tried so hard to mimic Storm with, like, oh, you have neutral, up-down, air combo, grab, jutsu, ultimate. Like, this is the definition of derivative, bro. Like, this is so... And, you know, most anime game developers, like, you know, their abilities for making movesets are just sorely limited. And it's like, in a way, CC2 has this monopoly over anime fighting games, or more specifically, Naruto games. Like, because think about it, who's going to compete? Shinobi Striker? Like, who? But even though they're unprecedented on that front, it doesn't really amount to much if the game featuring these amazing characters is barely playable. And while I do always say how I'm delighted to go to town on CC2 and Storm, and how I love going on long-winded rants about it, I'm actually immensely disappointed by all this. And these rants really do a number on me, because they remind me that, you know, there's this infinite potential that they just refuse to capitalize on. If you genuinely enjoy this game, then, you know, more power to you. Far be it from me to berate anyone for enjoying something. But if you think this game is actually better than Storm 4 and how everything will be fixed, then, you know, why not, bro? Be my guest. You're free to think that. Like, if it makes you sleep better at night, why not?
This is a good game to play with your friends who don't play Storm. It's a good party game. That's what it is. It's a party game. A game where you sit back, relax, and grab some popcorn, and, you know, you take your greasy fingers and you just mash the attack button. You mash circle and occasionally counter and run around. That's what this game is. If you're able to turn your brain off and just enjoy this Kakarot-like experience, then more power to you. I feel like most Storm players who are actually, you know, good at the game and love the game are not going to have such a good time with this game. They won't be able to turn their brains off completely. And it's so funny, because CC2 proved all of these haters, all of these Storm doubters right by completely turning this game into a complete mash fest. And the best part about all this, and the saddest part about all this, is that I feel like this was CyberConnect 2's game plan. This was their vision from day one. This is the way this game is meant to be played, in their eyes. Because Switch Tech was a glitch. It was a fortuitous kind of thing. Like, I'm pretty sure that, you know, the Switch mechanic was just meant to be, you know, switching to a different character. Like, that was all. But they inadvertently made this insanely complex mechanic that gave so much life to Storm 4. And I guess you could argue it was a glitch because it was unintentional, but parts of that mechanic were definitely intentional. Storm 4 was a happy little accident. That's what it was. Most of the glitches and most of the techniques that are in the game, yeah, CyberConnect 2, they're unaware of that completely. The fact that a few players experimented with the game and started exploiting these unfortunate glitches that made the game so complex and elevated it to such a level is just a circumstantial kind of thing. It was like a happy accident, like I said, and now it's like nothing, you know? It's basically nothing. It's like Demon Slayer in a way. Not really, I'm not going to go that far, but really, it's closer to Demon Slayer Hinokami Chronicles in terms of brain deadness than it is to Storm 4. And I think that's a damn shame. And I understand that they need money. and they make more money by releasing a new game than releasing DLC. But really, why? I can't believe it, man. I can't believe it. Like, all they had to do was support Storm 4 forever. That was all they had to do. Fix the most glaring issues that the fanbase has been complaining about for years, for almost a decade. Just fix the most broken S-tier characters, the meta. Fix Tayuya, fix Tamari, Kaguya, Danzo's Awakening, Six-Path's Madara's Awakening, certain jutsus like Hashirama, Shuriken, Shadow Clone Jutsu, and, you know, the last Naruto's Rasengan Clone Jutsu. Nerf certain tilts, nerf the hitboxes of certain characters like Neji, Yugito, you know, like Nagato, Storm 3 Kakashi, and all that. Just nerf these things and some of the most obvious glitches. Nobody is asking. Nobody asked for any of this. And admittedly, they did nerf dash cuts, and I think they kind of nerfed Tamari by extension. And they also nerfed Mei. You know, the water ball doesn't really come out anymore. But Jesus Christ, man, nobody asked for 90% of these changes. You just made the game worse. You created more problems, and I'll never be able to live that down. It's just so funny to me. And even though I completely, wholly expected this to happen, I'm still disappointed. And that's, once again, something I mentioned in one of my previous videos, the state of benign indifference that I've been trying to attain, and that I always fail to attain. Like, I tell myself how, yeah, look, this is CC2, we know what we're dealing with, we're prepared for disappointment, we're desensitized, right? And I know what to expect. Nothing good. And, you know, I'm hoping. Obviously, you can't stop a man from hoping and having wishes, but, you know, I'm not expecting anything. And then the expected happens, and I'm still disappointed, and I'm still pissed, and I just can't be indifferent towards it because I'm just so emotionally attached to this game. And it's just so incredibly agonizing, tantalizing. I don't know, man. It's just something I can't put into words. Well, I just did put it into words. I just cannot, in good conscience, recommend this game, man. I cannot, in good faith, recommend this game. It's a travesty, really. Like, even if you're a newcomer, this game is not going to be friendly. It's just a game that is somehow universally hated. It's so ironic because it's so obvious. It's like evident that CyberConnect 2 was trying to, like, you know, pander to casuals. Like, oh, look at this tutorial, look at all these characters, look at this, look at that, pretending like this is the first Storm game. And even though they neglected their advanced player community and they only focused on noobs, the game is hated by noobs as well. So you didn't stick the landing at all. It's beyond apparent right now that this game is just a placeholder and an easy cash grab, a bridge game, and just a giant segue for Storm 5. And at this point, you know what the saddest part is? I hope I'm right, because I still want more Storm characters, more movesets, because when I see these movesets, they're amazing. And just seeing the state this game has been relegated to and the lack of care from the developers just pains me. It truly is tragic what happened to this franchise. Hence the name of this video, because that is the tragedy of Naruto Storm Connections.
Maybe the real Storm Connections was the friends we made along the way. Get it? The people we connected with. Oh, God. Anyway. So, yeah, that's how the ball bounces. I don't know what to say. You done goofed, CC2. You screwed up big time. I don't know what the plan is going forward, or if there even is a plan, but all I know is that Storm is a gift that keeps on giving. You know, a meme that keeps on memeing. So, just another day at the office, I guess. Like I said, tons of people already made videos ranting about Storm and shitting on the game, and I just felt like contributing to that list. And, yeah. You know I said how this would be my last Connections commentary video, but in all honesty, if some groundbreaking stuff emerges, like some insanely preposterous news, I'll definitely be there to keep you all posted. But in the meantime, we'll wait and see what the new updates bring, and You know, we know it won't fix anything, but whatever. And oh my god, holy shit, bro. This video was long as a motherfucker, man. I mean, I know brevity isn't really my forte, but this is too much, especially for a topic like this. Like, this could have been summed up in like 15 minutes, but anyway, that's about the size of it. If you like the video, like it. Do me a solid and leave your feedback in the comments below. Like, do you agree with what I said? Do you disagree? Do you think that I went too hard? Or maybe I didn't go hard enough? I don't know, man. I'm gonna make myself scarce, so see ya, peace out, and have a good one.